Welcome back, everybody. Episode 50.
The big 50. We made it.
Jiu Jitsu Dummies podcast. We're sponsored by Fight Back CBD. Get 20% off your CBD order at fightbackcbd.com with code JJD. My name is Milton Campus. I'm a purple belt, Fight Sports Coral Springs. You can check me out on Instagram at Uncle MiltyBJJ. Bo behind the camera. This knucklehead over here.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Junior. Jiu Jitsu black belt. Felipe and Sofia Morante. Fight Sports Coral Springs. I'm a hobbyist jiu-jitsu guy as opposed to what we got coming on now.
Officially, Junior actually put out a post. He's retired. He put out a retirement post. Black and white, all dramatic. He's retired because of his shoulder.
I'm retired.
So we'll see.
I'm a hobbyist. I got to retire.
All right. So we actually debated how do you introduce somebody of your stature in our world? It's like, do we give you accolades and talk about all the things you've done? Because it's like everybody knows you. How the hell do you do this? So, Vagner Rocha, Fafa Rocha, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you so much.
We usually go into the where did you come from? How did you start jiu-jitsu? So let's just get that out of the way. Tell me about how you found jiu-jitsu, and I know how you found jiu-jitsu, but you found it much later than we're gonna let you both speak. So tell us about how you found jiu-jitsu.
Funny story. So I was born in Brazil, raised in the United States, and in the 90s, late early 2000s, when the UFC kind of started like trending, I started to watch it, and I realized there was a Brazilian family that knew this art that was special, and it kind of made me curious, but I wasn't curious enough to go look to find it, and it eventually found me. I eventually went to Brazil for a vacation, with family vacation when I was about 16, and I had sprouted and I got real big, and I'm actually probably one of the biggest in my family. My parents are like junior size. They're small.
Thanks for the compliment.
I'll
take that from Vagner Rocha. I'll take that compliment any day.
Most of my family members are small, and I'm like 5'11". So
but tough as shit, right?
Yeah, they're all tough. Okay. Yeah, they're all tough. They're roaches, so they're tough. But I had sprouted, and I got to Brazil, and my cousins had beat the crap out of me. And, every vacation that I ever made to Brazil, I was like, I had that want to beat him up. I wanted to, like, I'm gonna make some sort of confrontation for us to like wrestle or tangle up, and I just show him that I got bigger and older and I was strong. And it all backfired because my cousin was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was because, I watched it on TV. I just thought these guys were doing on television was just, barbaric, but more like, oh, this guy just knows how to fight. He's in a martial art and he knows how to fight. But I didn't understand the depth of jiu-jitsu yet, And that first encounter that I had on the grass of my aunt's house, where I ate grass for about 30 minutes straight, it was rough. And I've always been the same person. Like, what you see is what you get. I've been tough and just like trying to prove myself my whole life. And at that moment, I was trying to prove to my cousin that I could beat him up. But at the same time, he was just beating the brakes off me. It's like when you get a brand new white belt in the gym,
something different,
and the guy was like, just plays with you, and you're like, you play with the white belt, and you're like, you're watching that white belt just kind of like, their marbles are like not understanding what's happening. Well, it's different because a white belt comes into a gym. They kind of know they're coming into this, and there's the chance of them getting me up. In my case, I had no idea what was happening to me. I just knew he was just doing things to me. I had no idea. Like, he was triangling me, and he had his legs around my head, and he was choking me, and then he had my arm stretched, and he was trying to break my arm, and he rear naked choked me, and he was just doing things that I had no idea what he was doing, and just being real like mean to me at the same time. He was doing it and just being malicious. And he's still that cousin that I when I hang out with him, let's say we spend a week together. Everything we do, we're trying to compete against each other. And it's,
really?
Yeah, it's horrible. We're like old men, but we're still competing. Like, he came here for the first time to the States, and 2 years ago, and he spent 2 weeks here, and I took him to everything. Like, there was no Top Golf in Brazil, right? Took him to Top Golf, whooped him. took him to a bowling alley, whooped him. Took him to snowboarding. You know, like he would just watch him kill himself. You know, it just took him everywhere. I knew he couldn't beat me in anything. Yeah. You know, and then he brought a friend, and I was like, I'll do jiu-jitsu against both you guys together. And then I beat them both up together. So it was like just anything I could do just to prove my point that I could. You know, again, I've always been ultra competitive, and that's probably why I am who I am and where I am in position in my life. But that depth of him just beating me up, I remember like clearly sitting in the grass and kind of like, you know, like feeling that itchy feeling, you know, because your grass is just killing you, and like shirtless and just kind of like demoralized, and him laughing at me, and my uncle and my dad sitting there laughing at me too. And I'm like, what did you do? What was that stuff you were doing? Like, he's like, I've been doing this martial art thing, and it's awesome, and you should do it. And I'm like, what is it called? He's like, it's, you know, jiu-jitsu, but it's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's this, and I'm like, I've seen those guys on, you know, on the UFC thing. They're like, yeah. He's like, but there's only in Brazil this, you know. And I was just like, man, this sucks, you know. And I went home. It was, you know, at the end of vacation. You know, vacation ended. I went home, and I had that in my mind, like, I want to do this. You know, I want to find this place and learn this. You know, but you know, when you're 16, 17 years old, you're not really. Your brain isn't like it's there right there and then like 5 minutes later it's something else, right? It's like the kid from Squirrel, the squirrel from Up. Yeah, the guy's like the squirrel, you know, just everything changes, you know. So my brain was, you know, functioning on that level, and I went back to high school, and a friend of mine's like, hey man, come do some wrestling, high school wrestling. And I was like, all right. And I went into the wrestling room, and I saw all those guys in Speedos and you know, like in the, you know, their not Speedos, in their singlets. I was just like, bro, this is so weird. I'm not doing this. He's like, I bet you I'll beat you up. And I like, my brain racked back to like, oh, my cousin taught me a move.
What move?
He taught me like an armbar or something, but it was, you know, I learned it one time. Yeah. What makes you think I remembered it, right?
Yeah.
You know, like a year had passed at the time. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna beat this kid up with this, you know? Like, I know this one move my cousin taught me. Mind you, this kid was a wrestler for like 3 years, and he had been doing jiu-jitsu himself. So I took another beating.
Ouch. And Fool me twice.
Yeah, but then that beating took me to the next level. I was like, hey, where do you learn this? Because when he hit me with the first armbar, I was like, right away I spotted. I was like, that move is not wrestling, right? Yeah. This did you learn that in here? He goes, no, I do this other thing called jiu-jitsu. It's actually Brazilian. And I'm like, where did you learn it? And then he pointed me to Pablo's gym in the Commercial Boulevard. Yeah. And that's how I ended up there. And then
so now, we talked about this before, but you guys met. You met Junior. Tell me how you guys met. Your jiu-jitsu
journey started way before mine did.
Yeah,
a few years. You were already training. When I got there, I was just the white belt that got abused for 3 years, probably promoted to the blue belt. But the thing that I loved about those days back with Pablo was that he would run at least 3 or 4 classes a day. Yeah, so you're getting 1 in the morning, and you can get 2 at night. And doing that repeatedly is what really, I think, increased everybody's skill level during that time.
Yeah, and there was more than that. There was the 1 in the morning, and then there was a midday training that was like for the professionals, and then there was another one at night. So it was a lot of training.
Did you ever think, I mean, now, like looking back now, that jiu-jitsu, you were going to be able to make money from jiu-jitsu, first of all, that you can do competitions now? Did any of this seem plausible?
For me, it was... when I was a brown belt and I was watching Pablo do it, and I was kind of making my own waves, you know, I was kind of like doing some things that people were like kind of recognizing me for. I started paying attention to him, and I was like, man, this guy's doing something here different. You know what I mean? Like, he's got a business sense to his gym. He's got, you know, his career. He's doing some things that are different. To me, me and him, we don't have the best of relationships today. We're not like best friends, and we don't talk to each other or anything. But I have a lot of respect for the fact that I feel like he was one of the first professional grapplers in the world. First professional grappler. He wasn't a guy who was competing in all these tournaments. He was like doing Grapplers Quest, and he would only go there if the guys from Grapplers Quest would give him a flight and a hotel, and they would pay him a little bit of money. And then he would go and he would compete. He would do their local tournaments, or he would go do a Naga super fight, or he would do an ADCC super fight. You know, he only did ADCC tournaments. Like he'd already had this. What's happening now in the sport, he had already done it, 10 years ago. Even more than that. That's in 2008, 2009.
He's creating a name for himself.
Yeah, he was already doing
really
it,
fast.
and real fast, and
Professional level.
yeah, he was on a different level. And even with his business and his gym, he had it locked up, and he was doing some really amazing things with his school. He made a lot of bad decisions and made some real wrong turns in his life, but for a long time, he was really focused in the right direction. And but when I was witnessing this, being the guy again who, like I said, I spotted something, back in the days, I was able to very quick to spot things and notice like, hey, something's happening here that I can jump on. I started realizing, I was like, man, he's making a good living doing this. Like, maybe I have a chance here. And then one day in the gym, somebody was like, hey man, you're a really good teacher. You should open up your own gym. And I was like, kind of like brushed it off, and I look over and he was looking at me and he was nodding. He's like, you would be a good instructor. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, you want to open a gym? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And that was
Seed
it.
planted.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question, because we don't want people to think that it wasn't a lot of hard work that you put into the beginning of your career. Because when you first started, I remember you had like a full-time job, right? You would leave your full-time job and train, right?
When I was 19 years old, I became a dad. So, me and Fa were married already, shortly after, and life was hard. Yeah, it was not easy. I had
But when the opportunity came, when he accepted the opportunity of open up a gym with Pablo, he needed to set apart time to be there, but at the same time, he still needed to put money on the table.
Yeah, I needed
He
to
had two
feed our
kids.
family.
He
Yeah,
had a house, so it was. Even me, I was, had a job working full time with kids. So it was.
But that was a journey. That
we
was
were
a
talking
journey.
the other day, like how crazy it was back then. Like, we remember waking up in the morning and just split. He'll go one way, I'll go another way, and then kids and daycare and school and
His
that,
life.
and then we only see each other like at 9 p.m. at night, and then hey, how are you? How's your day? And then go to bed, and then wake up. I would wake
And
up
that
at
was
5:30.
for years, right? That happened for years.
And
And that's the thing.
every day,
Many,
yes.
many years.
And it
That's
was
what we need
right in the
people to
beginning,
understand.
right when everything was happening, opportunities, and then financial struggles, and so many things.
So how did you look at? He comes home and says, "I think I want to open a gym." What do you say?
Well,
Do you remember your reaction?
Well,
it was happy. She was happy. She was like,
Yeah.
really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember that.
he was always like, he always loved jiu-jitsu since day one, and that's something that I always support him. And like back in the days when he used to go to jiu-jitsu, when we started dating, he was a blue belt, and then I just come and watch him, and then no, it was something. It was there.
You were
could see,
excited
like,
about it. You were excited for him.
Yeah, you could see there was a spark in that, and he would talk like, "Oh, one day, I wanted to have a gym," but he was still like a purple belt or brown belt. But when the opportunity came, we're like, "Oh, okay, jump on it. Let's go. Let's do it. Whatever it takes."
The first gym, you said you did partner with Pablo on that first gym?
we were business partners for 3 years, and then things started going well, and I was like, hey man, business partnerships never work, I was like, hey man, I gotta make a move. Either I'm gone or you're gone, and it's not personal. It's just I needed it for my own living, well-being, So he was cool with it. I purchased the his part of the business, and then I started to just run faster, run more.
And was that VRMA? Was that Vagner Rocha Martial Arts from the beginning?
Yeah,
or
no.
did you change the name after
No,
you
it
bought
was
him out?
it was Team Popovich for the first
It's
3
Brazilian
years.
Jiu-Jitsu Center.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Center.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, of Pembroke Pines.
that's right.
Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Center of Pembroke Pines, and then we changed it to VRMA.
But once, he had a 100% partnership in the gym. That was exactly when I quit my job, and then I start focusing whatever I have learned at my job into the
run the
gym.
business.
So it became like a family business, and this is when it took off.
Okay.
This is when it took off. This is when, the kids were there full time learning jiu-jitsu, and that's when we're talking about just a couple of minutes ago. That's when I also saw, that beautiful thing that was going on right in front of my eyes that I needed to be part of. That's when my jiu-jitsu journey started.
So what year is that? Do you remember?
2000, end of 2010, 2011.
All right.
So yeah, 10 years ago.
So you didn't want to miss the boat. It's a little FOMO, right? They call that FOMO.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I need to be part of it. Yeah.
And are you? I tell everybody. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you either love jiu-jitsu or you hate jiu-jitsu. You're either going to be in it or you're not. Did you feel like? Yeah, did you love it from the beginning, or were you like, "What am I doing here?"
Well, in the beginning, stop it. In the beginning,
you gotta tell the truth.
In the beginning, I remember as a white belt, I went all in. I went all in, you know, I was training twice a day. I want it. And I even told him I want to compete, I want to do this, and I want to do that. So he took me to a couple tournaments, he even took me to the World, 2012, white belt. I got third. And then after that, he promoted me to blue belt. And then I paused for a little bit because after I got my blue belt, I wanted to still continue to compete, and now I'm a blue belt, and like fresh blue belt, and then I just got disappointed with the turnout. Like I was losing more than I was winning, and then there was a lot of things going on too. The business was picking up, and I'm the one that's behind, the one that nobody sees. Like he's the face, he teaches the classes, and I'm the one that no one knows that I'm like demonstrating. She does the business accounts, and
business.
And that was that. So it was another. It could be an excuse. Go ahead, go. It's about that you want to do.
No. She
it was just a lot on my plate.
She started to look to the sides and looking at other people and trying to pay attention to how people were getting better, and she wasn't. She was caught in the mix of what everybody gets caught in the mix of. Like,
I'm not getting any better.
Yeah, I'm looking over here and that guy's getting better, and that guy's getting better, and that guy's getting better, and I'm here standing in place, and that comparing yourself to others.
And it was also when you broke your leg too, so you were in training, and then it was a lot of things going on. And
it was a mix though.
2 years off.
So finish that thought, because were you telling her that? Were you telling her like, listen, when you go through that moment that you had, you're supposed to be there. Almost everybody has that moment.
I didn't tell her that. I told her the wrong things.
Yeah,
I told her I was like, you don't really love this.
Yeah,
you
said you should quit.
Consider it.
You're right.
I didn't.
Stay home.
I was more of like, no.
Really?
Yeah, I was hard on her.
Yeah.
Again, young and dumb. You're just like, because to me,
was it a reverse psychology thing though?
I was trying to play that seed of reverse psychology, but most people play it differently, right? Yeah. She was like, okay, you're right, and she stopped. She just took a break, and then. But it didn't last because, again, we lived that,
your daughter.
Yeah, there was not
daughter's training.
My daughter trains,
really
my kids, my son trains. Everybody's in the house training, and you can't. There's no way you live in my house and you can't stop jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's one thing that I learned is, jiu-jitsu is our lifestyle, and it's always gonna be there. So eventually, I'll go. I'll go like couple days during the week, and then I caught myself training constant again and then got my purple.
It's easy to get started. Well, it's hard to get started, but once you're there, it's easy to stay in it.
But now like I'm at this place that I don't compare my progress with nobody else, and I just try to have fun, try not to overthink, and trying to learn as much as I can, especially with him. I always think of this like, oh, how lucky I am that my husband is Vagner Rocha, and I can learn. I can have free private classes with him.
Right.
So yeah.
So awesome. I'm sure you have to have that conversation with other students on the regular.
Yeah,
right. What she just went through.
Yeah, that lesson was good for not just her and me and our family, but it was good for me with students. Because you're not supposed to compare yourself to others. You're supposed to compare yourself to you yesterday. Compare yourself to the person who started jiu-jitsu in your first beginning of your journey, your first day.
Your first journey. You said the word. Yeah, your journey in life, right?
Look back at your beginning of your journey. Look how far you've come. So you compare to that, but you should never compare to others. Because some people are gifted, and some people are not. You're never going to compare yourself to the guy who sucks more than you. You're always going to compare yourself to that guy who's an example in the gym that's amazing. You're like, wow, that guy's so good, and he's only been here here, 2 years. How is he like, a world-class guy already in 2 years? Well, you can't compare yourself to that person because that's not you, And a lot of people get caught doing that. Some people quit jiu-jitsu because of that. They don't see their own progress. And you can't see your own progress. Like I said earlier, you have kids, you'll understand this. You'll look at your kid, you can't see your kid grow. You know what I mean? You only realize your kids grow when you look at a picture. It could be something like 6 months back. You look at a 6 month, oh my God, they've changed in 6 months, But you don't see that in person. You don't see that on an everyday basis. You don't see the growth. You don't see the change, and you don't see that in jiu-jitsu. And you don't really. It's hard. Jiu-jitsu is so hard.
Here's a very easy question, right? But I'm sure people think about it all the time. Giving a surprise promotion to somebody who you're watching, and they tell you, Professor, I'm not ready. What is your reaction to that?
It's not really your opinion, right? You're not the person promoting, So I always say that you're not.
Have you ever had somebody actually say that? Like, hey, no.
It happens all the time in my gym. My gym it's ultra competitive, and it roots back to me because I'm ultra competitive, and like I said, I'm that way with students. I'll come in some days and train with people, and I'm like, oh man, today I'm going to do this to you. Not to be like mean to them, but just to like challenge them. Like I'm challenging you.
Yeah.
And that's just my nature, and like I did what I did to her. I was like, yeah, maybe it isn't for you. I was trying to play a reverse psychology goal on her head, but it didn't work out. It backfired. So yeah, backfired. And we have to, look at the picture as, like I said, somebody else is looking at you, and they're going to be able to tell you, like, hey man, you've earned this moment in your life, and you've stepped to that next step, and it's time to move forward. And like I said, not everybody's, like you were saying, you're a hobbyist, that's what it is. It's not your job. It's not how you make a living. It's not what you're chasing to do. This is something you just enjoy doing. And some schools have that problem where they look at people like they look at a guy, he's 45, 50-year-old dude, like, bro, that guy's not going to be, your world champion. He's just here to get better and to progressively get better. And eventually she says, oh, I can't see myself being a black belt any day soon. I'm like, bro, what are you going to do? Train for 20 years and I become a black belt?
It's eventually going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's going to happen,
Yeah.
And she had resistance when she got her purple belt. She's like, oh, I don't deserve this. And now
I was like, no, I'm not there yet. No
and there's
way.
resistance a lot. Like I said, even in the gym with students.
So in your mind, were you saying no because you didn't feel like you should be wearing it yet? Or was it a competition thing? Because I know, sometimes, and I don't want to say anybody's a sandbagger, but there are sometimes that people don't want the belt. They're like, well, I want to compete a little bit here more. I want to get more experience at this level. Was it one or the other or both?
No no competition.
Okay.
But in my case, he surprised me with the purple belt, and I was just blue belt coming, so it was still like not like it used to be. Like my white belts was everyday training, right? But my blue belts was like twice a week. If that. Sometimes it was once a week. And then he surprised me with a purple belt. So in my head, I was like, I'm not even training to get a purple belt. This is ridiculous. I don't deserve this. You're giving me this because I'm your wife. Shame on you.
Twice a week.
Don't do this to me.
Twice a week for like 3 or 4 years, like.
But again, it all goes back to
that's a long time.
This is a
for a
hobby
blue belt.
for me. I'm not a competitor. This is a hobby for me, So
And
he knows best. He knows.
Yeah.
That's okay. Look, I'm a hobbyist as well. I started at 41. I started right before my 41st birthday. Training 7 years. I just turned 48.
No way.
I have no aspirations to
You don't have a
be.
wrinkles. You're good.
What's that?
Your skin is
thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
I always got to work my age.
Para un
into the
viejo.
podcast.
Not everybody looks old.
I know. I say, I've had a lot of conversations with some of even our other co-hosts, who were on when they were just getting their blue belts, and I would tell them, like, they actually said, like, I'm not ready for it. I'm like, you're thinking in terms of that you're supposed to know everything you're going to learn at blue belt. No, you've learned everything your coach is telling you by giving you that belt, that you've learned everything that I can teach you at white belt. It's time to go to the next level. Now you're going to take these couple of years, 2, 3, 4, however many, and you're going to learn what you need to learn to earn that blue belt. You kind of earn it, right? Right. When your birthday starts, right, you're 0 years old when you come out of the womb, and then it's day one, day two, right?
Yeah.
You have completed 1 year when you are 1 year old, right? So it's kind of the same thing. You have completed this journey at white. Now, be prepared for the next one. I had a lot of guys that were scared. Like, what are the expectations? Like, really, there's not a lot that's going to change when you come into the gym the next day. I might beat you up a little bit more because now I'm allowed. But a lot of everybody has that same. We've heard this a million times. But so purple belt now
Yes, purple belt for 3 years now.
for 3. Now you worried about the brown belt.
Yeah.
She's definitely worried about it. She thinks that any minute I could surprise her with it, but
And I'm like, nope, not
she's,
there yet.
she's doing good
Not
with the
ready yet.
purple belt. She's actually doing really good, and she only measures herself to when people come visit, and then she rolls with another purple belt that's like, you know, maybe even a competitor purple belt, and then she's like, oh, I did really good, and I'm like.
Yeah, 'cause that's another thing.
Exactly, right.
Like,
You're my wife.
Exactly.
You're my wife. I've taught you
and-
what you
and
need.
She's surrounded by not just my wife. She's surrounded by a younger version of me
Yeah.
at home.
yes.
Your daughter.
And that's
Yeah.
your daughter, Jasmine.
She's
She
like
beats me up.
she's like a young.
I'm always
she's,
like, oh.
she's
She
like
doesn't care. You're not
she's-
mom on the
no,
mat, right?
No,
No, not at all.
She's
Girls
she's
fishy.
me.
Do you guys do you roll together a lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
often, very often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's her main hammer is Jasmine at home.
Really?
Yeah, and like, so she's always kind of getting beat up by Jasmine, and she's kind of like, oh, you know. But then when she rolls with somebody else that's not at that level, she realized like, oh, you know what? I'm
It's paying
actually
off.
I'm
Not
actually
that
good here.
bad.
Yeah, not that bad. Yeah. So yeah, and
No,
Jasmine
yeah,
is like
yeah.
like I said, a younger version of me. Like I was saying about being competitive. She's 100% that person. She's like almost has like that same level of competitiveness. That's like it's a trade from my side of my dad's side of the family. My dad is like the most competitive person you've ever met in your life, and then Jasmine has it. I had it. I kind of toned it down. Like I know how to turn it on when I need it.
Yeah.
But I used to be like I couldn't play a game with somebody without getting upset. You know, like I'd play a game and I'd be like, man, like I can't believe I'm losing this. Or, you know, with her, like she's been coming home every day. She's been running our summer camp, and she comes home every day. She turns on the PlayStation. And the first day we played FIFA, she beat me like 5-0. And I was like, I've played this game before. You know, I just don't remember the controllers. You don't remember
Yeah.
I like just playing with her, like letting her win. She's like bragging, I whooped you 5-0. I whooped you 5-0, Dad. And I'm like, I don't know how to play, Jasmine. I'm learning the controllers. Then the day passed, the first day, and then we played again, and it was 0-0. Then the next day, I was like 1-0 for me. And then yesterday, I put 4-0 on her.
Nice.
And like it's been like about 5
Jazz
or 6
and Dad's
days in.
bragging over here.
5 or 6 days in, right? And I'm just kind of quiet, like scoring. And then she's like, I'm not going to play with you anymore if you keep laughing like that.
So super competitive and a little bit of a sore loser.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's like, I'm not going to play anymore if you keep laughing like that. That's not funny. You've been practicing every day, haven't you? I'm like, I haven't touched the controller. Except for every time we play. And I'm being 100% honest. I don't turn on the TV to play video games in the middle of the day. You know, I got things to do.
Yeah.
But she comes home, she turns that on. She's like, let's go, come on. And then, because it's just in her nature. Like
Sure.
she wants
Like
to win.
competitive.
It's bad. And she used to be like that with my son. And my son, on the other hand, is like her. He's kind of like, he doesn't care. Like he'll roll. Some days he'll show up to the gym and he'll roll and everybody will tap him. And he's just like, doesn't care. Just brush it off, and then he'll come in and one day and he'll just be like, boom, and just
Puts it on everybody.
Yeah. But
Yeah, he's a roller coaster. He's
Yeah.
all there or he's not there at all.
yeah, and she's for years been just dogging him and beating him up and just like, you know, when he was smaller and he was getting, and now he's like 6'1",
Double her size.
195 pounds, and she's like 5'2" or 3. So she doesn't even look his direction anymore to roll because she'll know if she
Yeah.
plays that game or that card, he'll just go, hold on a second, let me show you what man strength feels like.
Squish her.
But yeah, she's just got that nature in her, and she's beneficial to Fafa because at the end of the day, it drives her to become better because she's always kind of like checking her, like, hey, come on, let's go. You need to train. You need to do this. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. Even though sometimes she's like, I don't like it. I don't like. Keep me away from her today, please.
I'm always
Some
curious
days
about
I'm
like those relationships in jiu-jitsu. You're at the gym are you at the gym all day together, or is everybody kind of doing their own thing?
We're
Like you
kind
said,
of
your
all doing
daughter-
our own thing.
Yeah.
We're all kind of doing our own thing. She's there for the most part during the day. Fafa is either at home, you know,
Over there.
on the internet, doing something on the computer, you know, checking out something that needs to be done for the house or the business, and then she pops in and out of the gym, you know. And Jasmine's there like stationary. Achilles is 14, so he's kind of, you know, he's in a process of summer now, so he's with me, coming to wherever I go to train, comes home, rests, hangs out, and then goes back to the gym with us at night and helps, you know. But we're all kind of all over the place. But at night after 5,
All there.
6, we're all there together.
there
You know,
together.
so
Was there ever a time that it was hard to get the kids to want to train? Did they ever fight you on it, or it was just like it's the family biz?
it's always been a mission, and not now. Like the last, say, 2 years, it has been pretty cool. But before that, it was always hard. And to me, I always told my kids, like, jiu-jitsu is like school. It's a life skill that you need. You need to go to school.
Absolutely.
Like, there's not much of a wiggle room in this one here. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be a competitor.
But you got to learn.
But you got to know jiu-jitsu. And they're like, oh, you know, Achilles and Jasmine both had different attitudes about it. Jasmine just had that. She had it before she became good, because she sucked. She was like real bad. She was terrible.
No, I feel like they both hate it until
They became
it
good.
clicked.
Until they got good.
Until they,
Yeah.
until they go, oh, you know what?
Yes.
Like,
I can tap people.
I'm really
Yes.
good at
Yeah.
this. Like, I'm not that
Exactly.
bad at this, you know?
And I remember when both of them happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jasmine was around.
Jasmine, I remember clear as day when
She
it
was
happened.
around like 12, right? And we used to have those in-house tournaments for the kids at our old gym.
It was actually the first in-house tournament.
It was
that
the
she
first
clicked.
one, yeah. So it was, you know, all the kids the same age, right? And it was all the boys and Jasmine, and she got first place.
Yeah, she was
kicked
like
everybody's.
she was like
butt,
the worst
right?
student I had in the
I
group.
remember this because she wore a pink gi.
Yeah, she was the worst student I had in the group. Like, if every day we had a session of training, all the boys were beating her up. There was in the session she would win. Like, she had to be the worst kid in the group of 10 kids, and I did an in-house tournament, and it was the same 10 kids, and she tapped everybody out, like just cleaned house. And I remember going, like she leveled up to the competition
And
because
then
of her
after
competitive
that,
spirit. You know
the
what I mean?
confidence
The other
level.
kids, I
Daily.
think the kids that were good kind of like got nervous. You know what I mean? Because they'd never been put in that position before. And she leveled up because of her will. You know, she has this competitive
Drive,
spirit,
yeah.
her drive,
Yeah.
which is something I think she got from me, of course. And she just kind of like was like, all right, let's go. And she went and tapped everybody out. And I just remember thinking like, whoa, who is this kid? You know,
awesome.
and then from there on out, it just became this person we had to start checking. We're like, hey, slow that ego down. Like,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, like, how did you nurture her to continue to train and become better without her ego getting the best of her?
I also
So we still-
remember a little story
You
there.
said she was 12, right?
Yeah,
So
she was 12
she's
when
still,
it
I still
clicked.
have to check her every once in a while,
Okay.
you know?
But
how
I
old
remember.
is Jasmine now?
19.
Okay.
She's 19. I remember it was right around that, right after when it clicked. I remember we were still rolling, and you know, she was getting good, and it was right when I was, you know, coming back, you know, after the 2 years off. And I remember, you know, she was giving me attitude, and I told her something. I say, when we get home, you got dishes to do. Don't forget that. It was right about for us to roll, and then she got me on the arm bar. And me one, and she was like, tell me to do the dishes again. And I'm like,
Really?
we got a problem here. That's not how it works.
But that sounds like a little
So-
trash talking too.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was like, hey, no, we need to talk. No. There is the ego, you know, I know something clicked in her. She's getting good, but this is not good. We need to talk to her. And so, yeah, but you know, after that, she's being really good. You know, whenever we see something,
she's got
he always
she's got a
checks her.
very, very bold character, and she's a consistent, you know, her and Achilles was special too. He's got his own personality, but they were consistently always kind of like checking her, and you know, I'll give you an example of how bold her character is. She was at the
Oh, no.
I'm gonna tell the story
You're gonna say it.
because I laughed.
It's gonna go. It's
laughed.
gonna
story.
go.
I
Remember,
laughed.
we don't cut much out.
I
if
laughed.
anything,
I laughed at this, and then I looked at her. I was like, "Are you crazy? You should not just do that."
The audacity.
Yeah, she was at the Miami Open a couple months back, and I sent her to coach because there was a couple adults. There was 2 girls, 2 blue belt girls, and 1 adult brown belt man that was competing from our school. Miami Open is ran by Fight Sports. It's ran by us. You know, it's ran by our team, right? It's one flag.
Sure.
And one of our students, the brown belt male, was competing against Jazia's student, which is Fight Sports Deerfield. Jazia's was on one end coaching. Jasmine was on the other end coaching. And they were cool with it because Jizzy knows Jasmine forever too,
Sure.
and they have a good relationship. And they were coaching, but you know what coaching's like. You know what I mean? Like you're basically cheering for another person to beat somebody else, and it's the same team at the
trying
end
to
of the
win.
day.
Just
You
wanna
might
win.
know both.
So in the middle of this coaching, here comes Cyborg in the middle, and he's just like kind of watching them kind of coach against each other, and he looks over at her and he's like, "Hey, stop coaching," and she's like, "Why?" You know, like Cyborg said that she like kind of like puffed her chest at him, and he was like, "Hey, what's wrong with you? You know, like you know who you're talking to?" And she's like, you know, no disrespect. He said, but he goes, "Yo, she kind of looked at me funny, like gave me a dirty look," and I was like, "That's."
Did he want them both coaches to stop coaching?
Yeah, he
Just
wanted
like,
the
let them
boys.
compete?
Yeah, let them fight. You know what
Okay.
I mean? And I was like, "Man, I'm sorry." He's like, "No, she's got a strong character." I'm like, "Yeah, she does.
That's
like,
awesome.
it's
Nice.
all the time, you know, and it's always like a consistent like checking her." And he goes, "Man, she's tough." And I'm like, "Yeah, she's not a normal kid, you know, a 19-year-old
No,
kid."
but that's good.
Yeah, it's
That's
great. I love it, and I tell Fafa all the time, it's just a matter of managing her to do the right thing. You know, that's
Sure.
to me. You know, at the gym, she does things over there. People think she's 30 years old. I'm like, because of her character, you know, her person.
Let me take a second, guys. I'm going to shout out some of our sponsors, and then I want to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about how you met Cyborg, and I want to learn the ins and outs of how you guys got together. But real quick, we're going to say give a quick shout out to DD214 Fightwear at DD214 _Fightwear. Gear for the war on PTSD. You get 15% off your online order at DD214BJJ.com. Please check out their Soul Armor gi. I think we've spoken about it a few times. The liner of the gi, you'll love this, right? Has the names of fallen soldiers. So really cool. The link's in the bio in the description of the podcast. Also, shout out to Warriors Next Adventure. They're a veteran nonprofit helping veterans overcome PTSD through recreational therapy. All right. And as always, I'm wearing a Flow and Roll shirt today. Huge shout out to Flow and Roll at flow_n_roll on Instagram. Get 20% off your online t-shirt order, rash guard, or gi order with code JJD at flowandroll.com. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share wherever you're watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to click the bell. Right? It comes
Subscribe,
in handy
like, all that good stuff, right?
Yes, comment, subscribe, like, get notifications when you click the bell. You'll know when we launch new videos. All right, guys. Okay, so let's go right back into. You open up your gym. You buy out Popovich. You're running your own gym now. How does Fight Sports and Cyborg come into this equation at this point? Were you already training together?
Cyborg and I met in beginning of 2008, somewhere in the beginning of 2008, about the same time I had kind of either had opened my gym or was about to open my gym. I can't remember exactly, but I remember I was already a black belt, and I went to Copa America up in Lakeland, and Copa was the only tournament in Florida that ran money absolutes, and I was very keen on fighting anywhere that I was being compensated for.
Sure.
And that was my end goal. I was like, I'm only going to compete in grappling if I'm making some sort of money, or I'm getting at least some sort of opportunity to make money, right? And I would go to the Copa Americas and do the absolutes, and I had a good track record up there. I either got to the finals or I won the tournament pretty often. And, it was always like either $1,000 or $2,000, in the absolutes, the gi and the no gi. And so I show up one day, and there is Cyborg and all of the guys who had come just from Brazil. He had just brought down like Ricardo and Jake McKenzie, and there was a couple other guys, and I'm gonna mention names, but there was a bunch of guys he had brought with him to the tournament. And I show up, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to compete against these guys. And I'm kind of like already scouting what's happening, right? Because I'm like, all right, it's gonna be one of those days. So I competed against all the boys on my side of the bracket, and I got to the finals against Cyborg. He had won this side of the bracket, and we started the match, and we had a really good match. And I remember this because it was probably one of the first times I ever had somebody talk to me in a match. And I took him down, and I'm being a lot smaller than him, and I took him down and kind of fell in his guard. And he looked at me, he goes, "Bro, you're a strong little guy." And I was like,
while you're rolling in the middle of the roll. Oh, wow.
And I look at him like, yeah, I'm pretty am. And he's like, all right, let's go. And then he kind of like, it was inverting and working to sweep me. And then he ended up sweeping me. And I think he passed my guard, and then I replaced and ended up winning by points. And I just remember him, we're like, as soon as the match ended, he came over. He's like, hey, where are you from? And I'm like, I live in, in Broward County in, Fort Lauderdale area. He's like, where do you train? And I'm like, oh, I train at Popovich. He's like, is there anybody at your gym that's as good as you? And I'm like, oh, my instructor's really good. I was like, he's probably better than me. He wasn't probably better than me. He was a lot better than me at the time. And he's like, really? Can I come? And I'm like, you want to come train with us? He's like, yeah, can I come visit you? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Most people say that, right?
They never show up. Yeah.
This man was there the next day.
Really?
Like literally, it was like on a Saturday. We competed. We exchanged informations. We did a Tuesday training. It was actually the first pro training that we ever did.
At noon.
At noon. It was the first one we ever did. Pablo was like, hey, let's train at noon. This guy said he's going to come. And I'm like, all right. And he brought his crew, the same guys that were at the tournament.
Pablo didn't know them.
Pablo didn't know them. We didn't know them. And at Pablo's, it was me, Fred, Fred Moncayo, Kevin Albertini, Pablo, and I'm trying to think as if there was anybody else. I think maybe Brasco was there, but I don't remember. But it was just a 4 or 5 of us, and there was like 4 or 5 of them, and it was like a brawl. We just trained it was like the hardest session ever. And I just remember we sat there, all of us, and we're just kind of like looking around like, wow, this was really good. And then he's like, let's do it again on Thursday. And we're like, okay. And it became a thing,
It became a thing to the point where a lot more
it became a
people
thing
would
where
show, and
people from
that
all
became-
over
that
the
became-
world.
yes.
It became Avengers, no?
It became Avengers from all over.
Is that how it started?
Yeah, from all people from all over the world showed up for that. Yeah, it became one of those wow, this is probably one of the best training rooms in the country, in the world.
And I think that atmosphere went over to evening classes and day classes, and everybody got that spirit.
It went over to all the schools. It went over to Cyborg's gym, to to Fight Sports. It went over to my atmosphere in my school. It went over to the people. Everybody who was in that mix of those sessions grew from those opportunities. In that, I mean, just think about it like this: if you are able to train every single day like you're in a competition with guys that are pushing you like as if you were in a competition. How much do you grow from that, And there was nobody was there to just kind of have good fun roles. Like people were trying to break each other. Like people were getting put to sleep all the time. People were screaming, getting hurt. Like it was rough. It wasn't even like Cyborg has our pro training now at Fight Sports. And those days it was way harder. I don't know if it was way harder because we just didn't know any better, or it was way harder because it was just so raw. People were just really wanted that opportunity to be better. You know what I mean? And it was great. And I thank God it was young because I made it out of that, and I'm here today to talk about it. But it was special, man.
Is that how you started flying the Fight Sports banner?
Yeah,
Essentially,
and then essentially the transition from BJJ Center, to my own VRMA. I started to see the things, like I said, the demise of Pablo's gym and the things that were happening in his surrounding circle. I started kind of going, I'm just started distancing myself. I was like, that's not me, that's not who I am. That's not what I want to be. And I went to Cyborg. I was like, hey man, we've been training for about, at that time it was 2011. We'd been training for about 3 years together. And me and him we've always had this bond. I swear we started training, and within a year we were like very good friends. We were like, he would compete. I would go with him. He would be like, "Hey, let's go to this." We started literally traveling together to compete everywhere. Like anywhere there was money, we were like, "Hey, you want to go?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go." And we would go. Like the Copa Americas, I think we went to Copa America. Like we started going to Copa America so much that when we would walk through the door, people would unregister themselves. It was bad because then we told the guys like, "Hey, put our names in the list and just let us know when the tournament's about to start. 30 minutes out, we'll pull up, and then if people take their names out, then you can call them out,
Yeah.
But we would show up and people would be like, yeah, I was gonna do it, but you guys are here and I don't think I want to do it anymore. Be like, come on, man, so it was it sucked for a little while because we went, how many times did we go to Copa America, all just me, you, and Cyborg and whoever he was accompanied with. Yeah. And we would just go travel, we'd go compete, and then we'd go to a water park, or we'd go, we did it so many times. We went to New Jersey and won the Abu Dhabi pro trials. We collected money there. I mean, we went all over the country, just wherever there was a check, we were coming to grab it.
Yeah.
So we had Jim Ehlers on.
Yeah, Jim's one of my
time.
boys.
Yeah. He told us one time at a Copa.
Yeah,
You guys had to square off.
So Jim was my student for till he was a blue belt. He came to me as a blue belt, and then he stayed with me for about 2 years. Then I promoted him to purple belt, and he moved away to Orlando. And in that process, after he moved away, he started training at Bruno Malfacini's. I believe at this time is where he was. And I show up to a Copa with Cyborg again. And I mean, it was stacked division. It was like, there had to be, that day I fought like 4 fights. There had to be like probably 30 people in the absolute. And there was like 2 or 3 guys that were world-class black belts that were like world champions, Abu Dhabi veterans. And they made the bracket. And first fight was Jim. And I look over, I'm like, hey, bro, you're going to compete against me? And he's like, I mean, look at this opportunity. This is cool, you know? I'm like, I'm not going to take it easy on you. And he's like, I wouldn't expect you to. And I'm like, okay. Like, I've been taking it easy on you in training, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm going to do to you in a competition is not what I do in training. And he's like, it's all good, bro. And I'm sure he told the story. What was his story?
He's exactly what you said. He said it. He didn't add any fluff. He said exactly what you just said.
Just
he was like, come on, coach.
I don't even remember what I did to him. And I remember demolished him, and he just afterwards like, God, why would you do that to me?
Oh man.
And I'm like, why did you put your name in the list? I would have done that to any purple belt that put their name on that list. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
I had to get rid of you. You know, the less I fight, the better it is for me to win the money. You know. But he was upset. He was upset. Like,
it was all business, right? It was just business.
Yeah, most people, the black belt would be upset, right? Like, hey, you were my student. You're gonna compete against me, like. Most black belts would be upset. It was the other way around. He was upset that I did that to him. He was like, "Oh man, I can't believe you did that to me." Like, you just like
You had to have known it was coming.
I came in there with no mercy, you know. And I was much more ruthless when I was younger than I am today. I'm ruthless today, but I was way more then.
Way worse.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the ruthless stuff. Where does the MMA, and UFC fit into all of this? Because I think you said before we came on, we were talking outside, and you said something about like really jiu-jitsu wasn't the first love. You wanted to be a fighter.
No, it was always like I said, back to the story of my cousin in Brazil, and then relating jiu-jitsu back to the family, the Gracie family, and then watching the early on UFCs, and then kind of always thinking like I said, I went to Brazil to beat up my cousin. I always had that like that ultra competitiveness always was sparked in me because one, I was raised here in South Florida, and I was raised in a very bad atmosphere, and would say really honestly the hood. And like Fort Lauderdale, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the areas down there, but like Broward County, near Sistrunk and the like very rough areas, a lot of black Haitians, a lot of, very tough culture to grow up in, especially not being American and then, not being white, not being black either. You're kind of mix of a very mixed culture.
You get
of
it
people
from both sides.
Yeah, I was getting it from all ends.
Like
So
Brazil, where's Brazil at?
Yeah, and a name like Vagner. Think about it. When you're a kid, Vagner is such an easy name to target.
Milton.
Yeah, no. I can't come up with 3 things for Milton. Vagner. There's lots of things to come up with. So I grew up in the hood, and I honestly I remember just growing up and just like every time I had to get in a fight, I was just like, oh, this is gonna be fun. And I tell people all the time, like, I would literally be excited all day long about how I knew I was going to get in a fight with somebody after school. Like, that was like I would go to school thinking about how I would get in a fight. And it wasn't like I went to school to fight people, but I was there. And then when it kind of started to kind of formulate, I was like, oh, this is going to happen today? Like, oh, this is cool. And I tell her all the time, like, my son's like, oh, I've gotten in a fight or 2. And I'm like, yeah.
Not in Sistrunk.
Not in the hood.
So
not when you're fighting multiple people trying to beat you up.
Yeah. So are you guys together? Do you guys know each other? Are you together at this point? Like in high school? Did you meet in high school? When did you guys meet?
Well,
you were in high school.
I was his sister's best friend in high school, and he had already
got
out of the school. Okay. Yeah, when I moved to Brazil, from Brazil to here.
Okay. What age is that? What age did you come?
I was 16.
Okay.
Yeah, 16, and then didn't know anyone. Became best friends with his sister, and then used to go to jiu-jitsu to watch his sister trained, and then he was like, "Who's your friend? Who's your friend?" And then
That's how that all happened. Yeah.
it all started there.
So you're a fighter by nature. Tell us about how you started, going pro.
Yeah,
And,
so-
how did that all happen?
Early on at Pablo's, it was the beginning of. There was so much story there. There was the beginning of the forefront of jiu-jitsu in South Florida. So Pablo's gym made of two others or three other gyms at that time. It was Pablo's gym, the Silvera brothers, who they had a team. They had a school in Miami, which was Carlson Gracie Miami. And then there was Boca black belt in Boca, which was Marcos Silvera, which is Conan Silvera's brother. And then there was the Valente brothers. That was it. That was the only jiu-jitsu in Florida. And Pablo's dad was friends with the Silvera brothers because they were all Carlson Gracie at one time. And those guys came over to Pablo's, and they started planting the idea of how they were going to make a big MMA team. They had kind of the funding behind it. Dan Lambert was kind of coming around the corner with the money, and they were going to build this American top team, and they wanted Pablo to be part of it. They wanted Pablo to eventually go from grappling to fighting MMA, and they were going to fund him and kind of pay him to just represent their flag and fly an American top team flag to be a competitor. And, because Pablo was a huge prospect. He was like very young.
Wrestler.
He was a good wrestler.
Yeah.
He had good jiu-jitsu. He had that new breed that was different from the generation before him. He had that wrestling jiu-jitsu formulated together, you know what I mean, which was very, very unique back in, the early days, which is not so special today because today you see a lot of it. But he was like one of the original pioneers of that kind of style. And he had just won, I think, the ADCC North American Trials 2, which he was on the forefront of becoming something special, and America Top Team knew that. So they made it all together, and they started making this session. And I remember some of my early sessions of jiu-jitsu training with guys like Dean Thomas. I remember training with Dean Thomas before he fought BJ Penn, and guys were like, "Oh, this guy's gonna fight in the UFC next week," and I'm like, "Oh, this is so cool." And then I remember watching him fight and thinking like, wow, like I trained with that guy last week, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do, And I already had that in my mind when I went to jiu-jitsu. I thought jiu-jitsu, I didn't think jiu-jitsu was what jiu-jitsu is today to me, I thought jiu-jitsu was just a form of fighting, It was like, I'm going to fight jiu-jitsu, which was fighting MMA or fighting, you know what I mean, in a cage somewhere trying to kill somebody.
But think about what he just said, right? There's a time when you just mentioned 4 schools. Right, in South Florida. And now how many schools do we have in South Florida?
I'm telling you,
One in every corner.
Exactly.
There's uncountless. You don't even know.
I think I was fortunate enough to live in Tamarack, and I would make that commute. And there's guys that probably traveled a lot further than that to come train at Pablo's.
Yeah, there was guys that travel very far.
I saw you. I had just started dating my now wife. She bought me a Groupon Valentine's Day gift, and it was to your fight. I wasn't training yet. To your fight at the War Memorial, a fight. I know you fought there probably more than a few times. War Memorial. It was a Valentine's Day fight.
You
wow.
lived this special day.
Wow.
February 14th.
February 14th.
I remember that
Okay.
there was one fight time day that I fought on. I remember on that day. Yeah.
It was it Fight Time Promotions,
yeah.
who I wound up doing some sponsorship with back in the day when I owned a marketing company. So I actually was like a sponsor for their amateur stuff. But yeah, that was you were always. I had the you signed posters. It was a yellow poster. I just threw it out the other day. I'm like, we've been moving. We moved from a townhouse to a townhouse while our house was being built. And it got ruined, and I had to throw it out. I'm like, damn, man, I know I'm going to have him on the show one day. I want him to like really sign it, And I threw it out the other day. But that was like one of my first dates with my wife, where we went to something. She knew I was like a UFC fanatic,
awesome.
and I was at that fight.
Event? Was that
you were the main event? So this is
Do you
for
remember
me.
the year?
February 14th. All you got to do is look at my
I don't
look at my
remember
record.
the year.
Look at my record, and you'll find the day.
It's got to be 8+ years because I've been training at the June is 7 years, I believe I've been training. So it was before I was training. So, but what I remember, what stuck out to me wasn't just the fight, was all the supporters at the end. Everybody was going crazy, and I didn't know, like, I had never saw like the fight sports, like, you know, everybody was like around you. You had come out of the cage, and you were outside, and like everybody was leaving, but this whole freaking crew of people that were like, oh fuck, I'm seeing this fight sport. I was amazed. I was just like, what? Who the hell is this guy? I didn't know who you were. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't in the jiu-jitsu world yet, and I was just like, what the hell did I just watch? I'm like, okay, I guess this guy is, you know, I guess some people know him. And then fast forward a couple of years, I'm training, and then, you know, hear your name, and I'm like, oh, that guy. Wait, I took out the poster. I wound up putting it in a frame. Again, it got ruined.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, that was
cool.
that was a long time ago. You said there was something special about that day.
There was something always special about the War Memorial. The War Memorial was the first place I saw a pro MMA fight, and it was also probably one of the first times I was you know, like I said, I just started training. That story's going to tie into what we were talking about before. I had just started training at Pablo's, and there was a lot of MMA fighters coming in and out. Hermes Frank, Dean Thomas, you know, there was Jeff Monson. I mean, there was so many athletes that were just, ATT was like bringing people into this little area niche of Fort Lauderdale, you know, Broward County, and they were kind of like formulating a team. It wasn't yet made, but they were formulating a team, and there was a lot of guys, a lot of, you know, guys.
Interest. There was a lot of interest.
There's a lot of guys that are famous today or just legends. And I remember just being in the room and just training with them, being on the mat and just rolling. And then Dan, once he created American Top Team, he created an event called AFC, which was an MMA event, and he would host it at the War Memorial. And he wouldn't even put out seats. He would just put out a ring, and then people would buy tickets, and they would go in and they would stand around the ring. Only? They would stand around the ring, and then if you were smart enough, you would jump on stage and kind of sit on the edge of the stage, the War Memorial stage. You would sit on the War Memorial stage and just watch the fights. Yeah. And sure enough, I remember me and you were early on dating, and I remember sitting there watching. I watched George Masvidal's first pro fight.
Really?
In the AFC on that stage. I remember. Wow. Remember thinking like, wow, that kid's my age. Like he's in there fighting. Like I could do this. Did
you see the backyard fighting stuff from him? Did you know who he was?
Years later, yes. I competed against George in a grappling match too, many years later. But that's one thing, not here, not there. Long story short is I just remember being there, and I know it was his debut because I remember watching him fight that day and then kind of starting to pay attention to him. I was like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to this guy because he's doing big things. I was like, I got to catch up to wherever he's going, you know? And the War Memorial was just held a special place for me. And then when Carla and Howard were running the Fight Time promotions, they were like, hey, you want to fight? And I was like, well, you know, yeah, of course. Where do you guys do the show? And I was like, they were like, the War Memorial. And I was like, yeah, I do want to fight there. Like that's one of those
karma. Like it was coming back to like that's calling your name, right?
That's where I need to be. Yeah. And then I just did show after show over there.
So Fafa, he comes home and tells you, well, now I'm going to start fighting MMA. Resistance, or you would again always supportive?
No, always support him.
My wife would be like, "Go sit down, you old man."
Until today, every decision this man takes, you know, even if I give him like my report, I say, I agree with this, I don't agree with that, I think this, I think that, but whatever you choose, I'll support 100%. Until today,
she
like
rarely tells me like no. She always gives me her report, like this is what I think. This is what I think good, bad, middle, and then she goes, whatever you decide, we're going to do.
And sometimes I'll be like, you know, thank God you went in that route. It did really well. And sometimes he'll be like, I should have listened to you. But, you know, but with fighting, again, it was his life. Like, remember when you were like teenager and you used to go to the bar and you used to go fight? Like, he was always fighting.
It was meant to be. When I was like 16, they used to have these. You know, I don't know if you guys are from down south from here.
New York. New York.
Well, they had this club down here called Baja Beach.
Oh, I know Baja.
And Atlantis.
Body shots.
Yeah,
don't tell my wife. She doesn't watch. Don't tell her.
Baja Beach had Monday night fights.
Oh wow.
So they would literally have a ring, and they would put boxing gloves on people, and they would let people go in there and fight. And I was 16. I didn't know any better. And I was like, I shouldn't even been in the club at 16, right? Like,
sure.
I'm not old enough to be in a club. But because I looked older, I always looked older, I would literally show up and be like, get to the door, be like, hey, how do you sign up to fight? And people were like, and they knew that I was there for that reason, and they would let me in, and I would just go there and sit all night long fighting people inside the ring.
Really?
Like, yeah, and they would give you a tape. So they give you a cassette tape. So if every time you fought, they'd give you a cassette tape. I'd take it home and I'd watch it. Or I'd show my friends and I would tell my friends and we'd go. And I was never old enough to get into the club. But they always let me in.
A lot of fighting experience. So when he said, I'm going to fight professionally, I was like, finally.
All right.
Finally.
Let's get paid to do it.
Always had that will to want to go there and compete and fight, you know. So to me, it was like, again, childhood, you know, teenage years, everything kind of always circled back to like, you know what, this is what you're supposed to be doing, you know?
Yeah. So now UFC, Bellator, you fought in both
Strike Force.
Strike Force.
Fight Time.
Did you expect, where did you expect that to go? I mean, you know, it's a weird question maybe, but like, did you feel like this is the thing for me? Fighting is where I belong?
I expected more, but I was, it was just a different time. Like I was positioned at the right time. Like everything worked out, you know, like if I would never have been in a position to, you know, run my gym and own my gym and have a successful gym if it wasn't for the, you know, the Fight Time opportunities, the UFC opportunities, and even the Bellator opportunities. Like those are all moments in my life that had a place and time. I mean, I wish I had done more with my MMA career, you know, like I look back at it and I'm like, man, if I had hadn't been so focused on one aspect of my game, which paid off in the long run. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm #1 in the world in grappling, leaving MMA, going back to grappling. It paid off because I focused so much on grappling and I said everything else didn't matter. You know what I mean? I was that guy. I was like, nope, I don't care about all that crap. Like, I'm going to take people down and submit them. You know, if I had maybe spread my time a little bit, if I'd done, I'll give a great example. A guy like Gilbert Burns, who was a good friend of mine, and I'm like, watch him. I'm like, that guy's doing it right. You know, if I had done it like he's doing it right now, you know, we're exactly where he is, you know? And it's cool to watch him do it and just look back. We're like, yeah, you know, things could have been different. But at the same time, my life is so amazing that I'm just like, you know, there's
just got to be happy with what you have.
There's no regret on any
exactly.
decision I made because it just all worked out, you know?
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to help us thank our sponsors at fightbackcbd.com. Browse their website for a variety of applications. Find the one that's perfect for you. Get 20% off with coupon code JJD at fightbackcbd.com and check them out on social media at fightbackcbd on Instagram and Facebook.
So God's good.
So was there a time, I was talking to my wife the other day, I was telling her about a story about my dad. He was a cop, but we were in New York City and he basically stopped a guy from walking out of a shoe store with a big box of shoes. It was like just been delivered. It was his box. He's walking out. My dad like says, hey, this guy's stealing your shoes. The guy goes outside and goes like this to my father. I'm a little kid. I was like maybe 9 years old. He goes like this to my dad from outside. And my dad just goes out there like, yeah. Like didn't say he was a cop, didn't draw a gun. It was just like, yeah. And the guy starts yelling at my father and he takes out his badge and he says, let's just go away. I'm not going to arrest you. Just go away. This is your lucky day. Go away. That was the moment that I realized my father was like my hero. He was like I thought he was a superhero. I'm going to ask you this probably. This is probably better addressed to you. Was there a moment where your kids started to understand who their dad was? That, you know, like this is Vagner Rocha. This is somebody who does all these things. Or is that just like he's just dad?
When we travel to get, ADCC, the last ADCC when we went to California, you know, like the kids, it was like the first trip that we took the kids to their first ADCC. So they were seeing everyone, all those jiu-jitsu star guys, and they were getting autographs and pictures and selfies. And they all like, oh, how's your dad? Hey, Vagner, how are you? And they're like, you know my dad? Oh.
They started to realize,
like,
oh, wait a minute.
Wait. And he'll be like, yeah, you know, we hang out at this ADCC like 10 years ago. Yeah, I know him, blah, 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 and, you know, and then Jasmine Akil is like, oh, wow. You knew, oh, wow. So I think that was the moment that they're like, oh, my, that's a big deal.
They realize who dad is.
And then now it's like when we go to like local tournament or even airports or I don't know, somewhere we go that people are like, oh, you're Vagner Rocha, can I get a picture with you? And they're like,
they're impressed.
yeah, so
They always play it off though. Sometimes I feel like they were like, it's just dad. But we went to a Jits King tournament like 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't take 5 steps without taking a picture. And I came around the corner, and Fafa's like standing there, and we're talking, and somebody asked to take a picture. She's like, "Oh, how many have you done?" She had noticed how many I had done, and I'm like, probably 30 pictures now at this point. She goes, "Really?" And Achilles is like standing next to her and he goes, "Yeah, it's kind of annoying."
Well, I mean, if they keep on doing what they're doing, they're going to be you're going to be standing over there one day, and it's going to be the other way.
I told them. I mean, you guys are probably familiar with Mackenzie Dern, right?
Oh yeah.
Mackenzie Dern used to be Megaton's daughter, right? So a long time ago, people would walk, "Oh, you're Megaton's daughter." And now people know her as Mackenzie Dern,
Yeah, sure.
you know, and Megaton is her dad.
It's like, can you hand the camera to the dad?
Yeah, Mackenzie's dad, right? Yeah. So things
Can
change,
you take a picture of me and your daughter?
Yeah, things change. You know, it's all a matter of perspective and
time.
Yeah. But they get recognized. They go places all the time. Jasmine was at what tournament did she go to by herself recently, and that people were like asking her questions, and she's like, I didn't even know some of these people. They were just talking to me.
Like they know you too, right?
Yeah,
they
like,
talk to you like they know you.
Yeah. And I was like, get used to it and just smile and wave, you know. Be friendly. Just be friendly, because you gotta be receptive to it, and you gotta be appreciative of it, because if you're not, then people are gonna dislike you, and they're gonna follow you, and they're not gonna try to help you in your journey, and every little piece of each person has a cornerstone to something, you know. You can't build an empire without it, you know.
So let me ask you, with that being said, how do you translate that into being the coach of a team, into influencing your students, your younger students, your kids program?
Lead by example. You know, lead by example.
You guys fight a lot. Your kids fight a lot.
I got some special kids.
They travel, right?
I got some special kids. I got a traveling team in my gym, like a traveling killer kid squad. Like, I have families. I have 2 families in particular that I laugh at others when they tell me this. Like, I heard a guy the other day say, "Oh man, I live in North Miami, and it's kind of far for me to get to your gym." I was like, "Okay, cool." I have 2 families that drive, one from Vero Beach.
Wow.
Yeah, Vero Beach and Jupiter. Both of them drive every day.
Daily.
One of the families is going to buy a condo in Fort Lauderdale just so that they can make that hike, and then they could sleep here and then just get out in the morning.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's and you know, mothers and fathers that are dedicated with their children. Their children are amazing grapplers, and you know, they want the best for their kids, and they say, "Hey, my kids are at this gym," and they're like a big fish in a small pond. You know?
So what information, or what do you tell your coaches? What knowledge do you give your coaches so that they can continue to transfer that information onto the kids in line with what you, Vagner Rocha, believe to be a jiu-jitsu player, or just a good person, a good human?
Just good moral skills, you know, good character. Teach the kids how to, you know, I try to resemble back to that first pro training session that we had, you know, at Fight Sports with the Fight Sports crew and Pablo's crew at the time, that we made this, you know, amazing group of people, that just hard sessions and good friendships, you know. And I try to get these kids to understand that, and that's what's created this amazing atmosphere in the school, is that these kids, they're all friends. They're all like, you know, train together. They kill each other. They're trying to break each other every day. But at the same time, like, if you go look on their Instagram, they're probably somewhere right now hanging out, you know, because they became, you know, what happens? You become friends with the people who beat you up, right?
Yeah, they're family.
Yeah, they become your good friends because you're like, you respect them, you know?
Yeah.
So we try to just teach the best of moral skills. And to be truthful, I mean, you know, not, you know, a lot of people are on this part of life, but our school is, you know, a huge Christian school. We implement a lot of the Christian values, not just to the kids, where we're trying to preach to them about, you know, knowing God, but we just teach them subtly the values, you know, the characters, the things, the right things to do, the what you're not supposed to do, and I believe that just by doing that, even without preaching about God to them, teaching them values that are right, go much further, you know.
Golden rule, the golden rule.
Yeah, the golden rule. Yeah, treat others like you want to be treated. You know.
Number one.
So, Jasmine, lifer, right? Jiu-Jitsu is her profession.
Jasmine and
right?
Achilles are going to be they're going to be special one
He's
day.
for
like I'm not even saying that because they're my children.
Yeah.
They're already no, they're not going to be special. They're already special, but they're going to be like something that you guys were going to be talking about 10 years from now. They're going to be like, remember when we talked about them? Like, yeah, I know. I'm like having to deal with them in the gym and watching them train. And they're just
So Achilles into this is does he know this is professional?
Yo.
Achilles
Achilles
wants to be a fighter. He says, "I want to be a fighter. I want to be a fighter. I want to fight."
I made a big mistake with him when he was a little kid, and I that inner part of him, like that's me, that he has in him, that it sparks out every once in a while, and I'm just like, whoa, control that. I took him to a fight when he was about 10 years old. He was like 10 years old. I took him to a pro MMA fight in Mississippi, and he was backstage, and then he walked out with all the guys, and I had like 6 guys fighting in the cage, and it was a pro event, and he sat like literally, because it was like, you know, most commission fights here in Florida, you'll never be able to do that. But in Mississippi, they were like, whatever, who cares? You know, there's a child at the edge of the cage kind of screaming at his friends that he knows. They didn't care.
He's part of the team.
Yeah, he's part of the team. He's part of the crew. Yo, he was literally on the edge of the canvas, like screaming, grabbing the cage. Yo, I've never seen him like that. And ever since that day,
You knew he had that fire.
no, he's been telling me like, I'm gonna fight MMA.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get in the cage and I'm gonna prove I'm like, all right, you got to train for that. He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's not that easy, you know. He's like, yeah, I know. He's like, I'm gonna first do these things in jiu-jitsu, then I'm gonna fight. I'm like, okay. But,
And wrestling.
And wrestling, yeah, he loves wrestling. He's very, very good at wrestling. He's ranked actually, I believe, 3rd in the nation at his age in
Awesome.
wrestling.
Really?
Yeah. So he's
And
very, very good.
how do you feel about those dreams of? I mean, do you try to talk him out of the MMA? or it's full
I do
back
like
behind you?
I do like she does. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
cool,
that's good.
let's go,
Whatever
let's
you want to
see.
do, will support you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never put I just tell them like it's not as easy as it looks, you know. It may look easy, you know, but it's not that easy, you know. So just
It's
tell 'em.
simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So competitive spirit runs in the family. Let's talk about some of the things that you do on the mat that really make you stand out. Do they call it the muffler? Right? Where did the whole hand over the mouth kind of start? Was that something you learned, or did something you just start doing on your own?
I just started doing it on my own because I started realizing sometimes you're training with somebody and they got hot breath and you're like, bro, just cover that. Let's cover that. And then I realized I was like, oh my, this is bothering him. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and then I just started like doing it just to play with people, you know. And then I realized like, oh, I could do this in a lot of different places, not just here. And one of the best places to do it is on the back, because you take somebody's back and you're on that seatbelt and hooks, and they're kind of just playing defense and they're holding your hands, and it's hard to get under their neck. But if you cover their mouth, they start panicking, you know, because guess what?
Can't breathe.
Everything comes out of your mouth and nose, you know, you cover both ends. They start panicking. And I started doing it in training, and I realized the neck would come up a lot more. It would come up a lot more often than you could imagine when you start doing that. And I just started putting a little system behind it. I'm like, hey, trap here, trap there, cover the mouth. They raise their neck. Like I must have tapped really 4 high-level black belts today, like high-level guys. They're guys that I looked up to before I was ever even anybody, just by doing that to them today. And I cover their mouth and their neck comes up, and I'm like, slide right under the neck. And then they kind of laughed at me like, oh, I can't believe you did that to me. I'm like, I'm going to do that again if you give me a chance. You know?
Do you remember when you did it, like at the fight? Because I remember.
Yeah, the combat jiu-jitsu match that I did. Yeah, I remember that.
I remember.
That's where I
And-
became famous.
Yes, that's exactly when it became
I
famous.
actually told, we were backstage and Jiz was kind of helping me warm up, and Gilbert, and I told them, I'm like, I'm going to do this. And they're like, you better do that because you're doing that to us. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it today. And they're like, all right, we want to see you do it then. And I'm like, all right. And then I came out, and sure enough, I kind of softened the guy up a little bit. And then I was like, all right, here we go. And then I did it, and he started panicking. And I was like, oh, he's going to tap. And then it took the internet.
Oh, yeah, I remember the next day it was memes everywhere.
Yeah. Still to this day, the one with the spanking is that the same one where you kind of spank somebody on the butt? That became a meme.
No, I don't
Right?
know.
There was
What's
one.
that
Maybe.
one?
No, you don't know that.
What's that
yeah,
one?
there's
No.
one that you kind of like started spanking somebody on the butt. You were
Probably.
you know.
Probably
Yeah,
combat-
there's so
I'm gonna find
many.
the combat jiu-jitsu ones
Yeah.
are great. even though I've never done combat jiu-jitsu again, I wish somebody would host a combat jiu-jitsu match for me.
You wouldn't do it because of the organization. You wouldn't do it because of
Just because of the professional scene behind it. I want to be compensated for whatever I do.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten an opportunity to do it again, and that's on my list to do again, because I feel like there is no rule set in grappling that favors me more than that one. Because that's, again, like when I did MMA, that's all I was hunting. Sure. Hunting the grappling, combat grappling of it. So I don't think there's anybody in the world that's better than me in that rule set. So I would love to do it again, but there's very little events that host that, and it's on my to-do list.
And how about Kimura King?
Yeah.
When did you start integrating that into your jiu-jitsu, or was it always something? Because I know as players we find something that we really like, that we go to, perfect it, whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
So that was for you. When did you decide, or when did you find that to be that ticket?
I started to focus on that around 2009 because of all the high level wrestlers that were here in South Florida, and that the guys that transitioned. There's nothing worse than going with a wrestler or an MMA guy that just wants to take you down and disengage. Take you down and disengage, or take you down and just stay in front of your guard and not do anything. So I started playing the game of like kind of leaving my legs behind just to let them grab it, and then kind of folding around the corner to get their arms or to trap their arms, or making like a technical get up and then leaving a single leg behind so they grab it, and then following
just a bait and switch.
Yeah, just a bait and switch. Yeah, trying to switch into the Kimura, and then just and then when I grabbed the Kimura, it was always a funnel system. I had a really good system of trapping the person, knowing like if I do this, he's going to do that. And if I do this, he's going to do that, and do this, and he's going to do that. And I started to realize it was working when I started trapping the best guy I knew in it all the time and tapping him with it, which was at the time Pablo. Pablo was my guinea pig for this move. He was, because he was so good at just take you down, pass your guard. He was systematic about how he would do it. He would just like, and when I say to me, he was doing this to the best guys I've ever seen in my life. Like he did it to, I can name you 10 of the best guys ever in jiu-jitsu, and I watched him do it to them. And it was just incredible how good he was at what he did. He would just take you down, pass your guard. He would mount you. He would S-mount, armbar you, or he would you would pass, and then as he's passing your guard, you would try to get away from him, and you would turn your back, and he'd take your back and rear naked choke you across your face. So if you fell on the ground and he was on top of you, the next step was him to pass your guard. So you didn't want to be there, So I learned because of MMA. I was like, I got to get up. Like if I was fighting him in a fight and he took me down, I have to get back up. But every time you get back up, he would take you down again. So it was like an unstoppable force that you couldn't just figure out what to do with. And sweeping him was nearly impossible. So it would be like, all right, I figured out how to get up. I was like, but every time I get up, he takes me back down. And I'm like, ah. So then I started putting the Kimura together, and then one time I had a sweep on it. Like I got it and I reversed him. I got on top, and I was like, oh, that worked. And then it became a system that I just started learning how to implement. And he was my, the reason why I did it, because I started realizing if I'm doing it to this guy, and he's probably the best guy in the world right now,
it's gonna work.
It's gonna work on anybody, And then it started working on everybody. It became my go-to, It became that's why eventually I branded the Kimura, Kimura King thing, just to get it out there for people to see,
Sure.
Do you have people that come into the gym, new students, or people know who you are? They know where your gym is. Do you get challenged? Do people ever walk in and
no?
Hey, let's.
No, I get people that come in that they want to challenge themselves,
Okay.
So, but I rarely get people that come in.
I know.
Like,
maybe back in the days, right?
Yeah, there was crazy people back in the day. So there was crazy people. It's crazy people who still to this day they'll come in and just joke, but they don't know any better, It's I'll be honest with you. There's a lot more people that come into my gym that don't have no idea who I am, as opposed to the people. I mean, there's people, of course, that come. They know exactly who I am, but there's a lot more people that come in that they have no idea who I am, and they just come up, sign up, they start doing jiu-jitsu.
And then one day they Google.
And then one day it hits them like, oh, dang,
like,
this guy is kind of popular in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's
They
so
see
funny.
a meme. I think I've seen you in a meme.
Yeah, I've seen you on the internet and videos and people talking about you. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do this a little bit.
You have an amazing space in Pembroke Pines.
It's in Hollywood now.
Hollywood.
Yeah, we moved.
Okay.
We moved like 2 miles east, and they changed cities. So, but it's
But it's a bigger space than what you had.
yeah. It's
Are you outgrowing that space already?
Almost.
No. Everybody tells me yes, but I'm like no,
Okay.
because I was in such a small gym for such a long time, and we made it do, you know. And this place is amazing. It's beautiful. We have 3 mats. We have 6,000 square feet of mats. You know, I don't see myself outgrowing this anytime soon. I mean,
She smiles when you say that.
yeah.
Is she saying?
Some nights in there it gets busy.
We have a plan, but we're not gonna say
Okay.
it until it's done.
Okay.
Yeah, we're firm believers in keeping our ideas to ourselves.
Sure.
That's good.
Yeah, we
had
don't
the
like
honor-
to say the plans before it's actually
course,
done.
of
So
course.
we got plans for it.
I had the honor
But
to train in your space one morning. Yeah.
It's beautiful, right?
I love it. I love the white mats.
Yeah,
I love the lights in there.
beautiful.
They're bright. You can see everything that's going on.
Jiu-Jitsu heaven, I call
Oh,
it.
it is. It's a different experience once you're on those white mats.
Yeah, it's fun over there. It's you know, it's competitive. It's fun. It's good people. It's you know, it's everything you want for jiu-jitsu.
Miguel tells us, Miguel, who's used to train with us up in Fight Sports Coral Springs, who's now he moved down to Davie. He trains with you guys. He says Vagner sees a kid that's just there to watch. He makes him get on the mat. He's like, let's go, get on the mat.
Yeah.
They could be in their jeans or shorts, right? And you get. Well, what's the idea behind that?
Just you got to get everybody on the mat.
Yeah.
You know, I do that with parents too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, your kid's been training for a month or two. What do you see? Oh, he's doing great. I'd be like, no, I'm talking about you. What do you see? You know, like you got to get everybody involved. It's important. You know, like I say this about my kids. It's not jiu-jitsu isn't a sport. It's a life skill. Every human being should know how to defend themselves.
Yeah.
You know, how often do you see people just shy away from helping somebody else? You know, you see videos all the time, people posting of like, you know, somebody grabbing somebody in the street and people just pretending they don't see it. I'm like, bro, you're doing that because you're scared. People do that because
Yeah.
you're scared.
Oh,
Because
true.
like one
They
of
don't
us
know.
sees
They don't
that,
know
they'd be
what
like,
to
hey
do.
man, what are you doing? You know, they wouldn't know what to say or to do. You know, they wouldn't know if they say, hey, what are you doing? How the reaction is going to come from the other person. You know,
And if they'd be able to confront that other person if they came at them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So most people don't have, you know, if you look back at humanity, you know, I don't know how many years, let's say, 2,000 years ago, you know, we were traveling and living in the wild, whatever it was. Every human being probably knew how to defend themselves, and they knew they had to defend themselves to survive.
Of course.
You know, which today we've become, domesticated, right? It's because it's the right
that's
word,
a good
right?
word, I think, yeah.
Domesticated, right? You know, so we don't know, we don't understand that. When there's
Soft.
yeah, it's very soft. Very, very soft. If we get confronted, the person thinks like by being confronted, you think you have to fight. And it's not necessarily the case, right? You think you have to fight, but you don't have to fight.
There's a lot of other skills that you can use before you fight.
Yeah, there's a lot of skills before you have to fight. You know what I mean? There's communication. You know, that's the first one. Like, hey, why are you doing that? You're not supposed to do that. That's wrong. But nobody has the skill set. They believe if they confront somebody, they have to automatically fight them. And that's not necessarily the case, you know? So it's, again, if you had jiu-jitsu, you would understand that, like, hey, if I confront you and I say something that I need to say and you get upset and you come at me, at least I know what to do. And most humans don't have that kind of skills. They don't have that kind of brain capacity. They don't have the problem solving. You know, I believe problem solving comes with jiu-jitsu too, you know?
Yeah.
So there's just so many things.
I call that what you just explained there, the quiet confidence that jiu-jitsu gives you. There's a difference between getting into a fight at a bar and training jiu-jitsu and being in that same bar and being able to say, I don't want to fight that guy because I'm probably going to hurt him.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get in trouble for it. But knowing that you could walk into a bar, a room, a classroom.
I hate going to bars or clubs.
And-
It's just not my environment. I got so many stories and just theories. There was a story once. We went to a friend's house, a good friend of mine, to her New Year's New Year's party, and she threw a party, and on the way in, I already told her, I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be here at this place. I don't know any of these people. Doctor, I'm not gonna say her name on this.
Oh yeah.
We went to her birthday or her
I
New Year's
forgot about
party.
that.
Sorry, we went to her New Year's party, and we went there just to be kind because we know her, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna be supportive. We're gonna go. She's throwing this thing, beautiful house. So we show up, and she had a DJ in her house, and there was people dancing, and this one here loves to dance. By the way, if you don't know, Fafa's TikTok famous. Look her up.
We're gonna
Shout that out.
Just
Shout that out.
not dancing, but she has videos
Let's get
on
that
there.
handle. What's that handle on TikTok?
Faithfully Me. Yeah,
There
that's
you
what
go.
it is.
Yeah,
Check it out,
she's she's infamous for doing little videos, skits, and funny things, and dancing, and telling good
There's
things.
jiu-jitsu content there too.
There's jiu-jitsu content. She's the number one person in
Two.
TikTok. Number two?
Yeah, there's Sage.
Sage, yeah. Between 1 and 2 on TikTok for jiu-jitsu too.
All right.
So, long story short, we're there, and she's like, literally, I'm sitting in a chair just like I am right here. She's probably at the end of that microphone dancing right in front of me, and there's a dude, probably where the light is, and he's doing a little dance all on his own by himself, and he starts to back up into her with his butt, like kind of like doing like a booty dance. And I'm just watching him. I'm sitting in the couch. Remember, this is somebody's living room. There's a DJ in the living room. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm just watching him. And he gets kind of close to her, and I'm like, hey, buddy, don't do that. And he's like, he turns around. He looks me in the eyes.
I had
and
no
goes,
idea who it was.
He looks me in the eyes. No, I think he knew. He looked me in the eye and goes, hey, I'm not scared of you. And I said, hey, I'm not asking you to be scared of me. I'm asking you not to back up into her like that. And he's like, I'll fight. I said, good for you. Where is this conversation leading? I'm telling you not to back up into her. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm just telling you don't back up into her. And he's like, I'm not scared of you. And I'm saying, just the fact that you said that twice tells me you're scared of me. So stop backing up into her. That's all I'm asking you to do. Like, come on, man. Common sense. And then there was another guy there that was with him that caught wind, saw what was happening, kind of was near him, and came over. He's like, hey, bro, no, I don't want no problems. I said, I don't want no problems either. I'm just asking this gentleman here to stop backing up into her, with his butt. Like, he was like, literally, he had backed up to the point where he was pushing her on top of me, and she was like in front of me. She's like, as he came closer, she backed up. As he came closer, she backed up. And then she got to the point where she looked back at me like, you see what's happening? I'm like, yeah, I see what's happening. And I'm like, hey, and I tapped him like, hey, man, don't do that, So,
But you're the guy with the cauliflower ear, so you're the guy that's causing the problem.
yeah, back to the thing. It's like, I don't want to
You're
get.
the
I don't want to get in a fight. Like,
Yeah.
bro, like, we're not gonna fight. There's not gonna be a fight.
Yeah, and he's very
It's not.
chill too.
It's not gonna be a fight.
Doesn't make
you know?
sense.
It's not gonna be a
yeah,
fight.
It's not a fight.
Yeah, it's not even fun.
So, listen,
I'm gonna
here-
hurt you. Like,
Here's a question, right, from Jose Pagan.
Students, right?
Uncommon gem.
that's Davi Ramos. We call him Davi Ramos.
Okay. What are some of the tools and strength?
He looks like
strategies?
Davi Ramos. He's Davi Ramos' twin brother.
Okay.
A shout out
Go.
to Davi Ramos. What are some of the tools and strategies that you employ to keep a strong mental space in approaching competition, training, and life? The stuff that you talk about right now. Help us learn how to smile in our matches to ha ha ha.
Just to be confident in training is basically, I guess, where his competition, whatever. It's just be.
Well, the mindset. What keeps you so focused that situations like that, what you were just talking about, it doesn't even have to go into you getting upset. You getting upset because a lot of people would automatically have flipped the switch, you in your position, and said, you know what, I'm going to choke you right now. Just
Yeah.
because you're saying that, just
Yeah,
because you're talking to me like that.
Yeah, I was like, bro, stop. like, that just doesn't make sense. For me, it's the confidence of being able to do what we do. Be able to train the way I train and know what I know and know that it's not worth my life. For example, if I grab this guy and I choke him and he goes against a gun and kills me, like, bro, it's not worth my time. That's not worth my time at all. That I don't want to deal with anything like that. Like that to me, that's why I'm like, I don't want to go places that I got to deal with people who are going to test themselves to see if they can, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what the world's like. People
Proving
are lost.
themselves to themselves against Vagner Rocha, right?
Yeah, well, it's just not just named Vagner.
Well, it could be anybody, sure. It could be anybody, but why put yourself in that position?
No,
you don't need to be that person.
I don't need to be that person. I'm better than this, and I don't need that in my life. And the confidence comes from just being surrounded by good people and putting myself through the ringer as much as I can, and being, I keep going back to it. It's just being disciplined with not just my body and my mind, but with my faith, just knowing that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong,
And I imagine it has to do with the crowd that you keep, because the crowd that you keep also practices those same values.
I keep such a small circle of people around me, and for the most part, the people that are in the gym that I surround myself with, my training partners and friends, people always say, oh, I really don't do much. Like, she'll tell you, like, my weekends, like normally Saturday night, what am I doing?
You're old, so you don't do nothing.
I'm sitting.
No.
35? 35?
No,
Both?
35,
How old are you?
She's 35.
She's 35. How old are you?
39.
39. That's not.
Yeah, she's gonna be
No.
36 soon.
My wife is still
35
29.
forever.
Yeah. So for me and for her, we're so simple. We just want to be together and just do small things. And so my circle's so tight, and even some of my really good friends are like, "What do you we never hang out." And I'm like, "Bro, you're actually a good friend of mine. Like,
Yes.
as much as we hang out and I see you in training or other places we travel to, like that's as close as my circle gets.
If we travel together, we're good friends.
Yeah,
okay.
for the most part. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't
Are
have
you-
to go out. We don't have to club. But if we travel together, you're a friend
You're an
of mine.
important person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ask this question a lot. You're obviously jiu-jitsu consumes so much of your life. Are you fans of jiu-jitsu? Do you watch the competitions on Flow Grappling? Are you watching YouTube videos? Are you a consumer of jiu-jitsu as well?
I am.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know
not.
if I
No?
is it.
No.
My kids.
Well, not on my own will, but since they are
It's
sitting,
forced upon you?
yeah, since they're
By
sitting down in the
default.
living room watching,
Yeah.
a fight to win fight, I'll sit down and watch as well. But on my own, let's watch it, guys. Let's make popcorn and watch this. I don't even know when
I don't.
it's the next fight.
I don't know if
But-
I am a consumer because I really love it and that's what I like watching, or I'm doing it because it's homework. I'm confused.
Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I believe it's more homework nowadays than it is anything because
Yeah, to you, I believe so too.
yeah, I used to be like that with MMA, and I used to watch every single UFC there was, and nowadays I don't watch anything. I don't know who's who and what's what. Like
Only if it's someone we know.
only
fights.
exactly like tonight there's a card and there's like two people I know, people that I'm been training at Sanford, and I'm like, man, I need to watch this just because I want to watch this person and support them, kind of cheer for them.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I probably like last weekend's card. If Gilbert hadn't been on the card, I don't know if I'd watched it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would have been like, eh.
That's the more common answer, because I asked that of a lot of our guests. It's more common than you'd think, that most of the people who earn a living from jiu-jitsu are like, yeah, don't watch it. I might do
it
lots
is
of,
common.
It's
Okay.
very common that they're like, yeah, I don't watch it, or
like I'm
look to see who
anticipating.
won.
I'm anticipating watching tonight's card, the Road to ADCC that they're hosting on Flow. But I'm not like, do I need to rush out of here to go watch it? Because I'll watch it tomorrow. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If I know the results tonight, it won't change my life. I'm gonna go watch it either way, just because I want
a
to
lot
see.
to learn there, yeah.
I want to see what was done in the match and
Yeah.
which pace was set. You know what I mean? Like I just want to watch the match to kind of understand what they're doing, because that's my job to study. And I keep thinking back to when I used to do that with MMA, and I used to think I loved MMA. No, it was a profession, and I was just studying the job. So maybe when I get older, I don't know if I will continue to be this person I am now. I hope I continue to always watch jiu-jitsu, because I feel like if it's not going to be my job, it'll be my kid's job, So hopefully my life won't, because I believe out of my house, I'm the most nerd out of all the kids and me. I don't think Jasmine doesn't have the same amount of like watching stuff, and Achilles doesn't watch at all. This kid my son is so special. He's funny. He won't even drill at the gym, and he'll show up and I'll be like, hey, did you see that move I taught? And be like, yeah, I saw it. I'm like, you don't know the move I'm talking about. He's like, no, this move. And then he'll show me it perfectly. And I'm like, wow.
But never drilled.
But he'll never drilled it. He'll never, and then he'll execute it in training, and he'll do things like,
He'll do
does things-
variations-
bro, he does
variations
his
to
own,
it.
he'll do his own variation. Yeah, like he's just exceptional. Like
He
it's
would adapt.
weird.
Fight IQ. That's like, right, they say in like boxing, their fighter IQ.
Yeah, he's so talented.
yeah.
It's weird talented. Jasmine is a workhorse. She's like, if she doesn't work at it, she won't be good at it. So for her, she needs to train and train and train and just perfect by training. And the old saying, iron sharpens iron. For her, it's that.
Yeah.
For him, no. For him, it's like just show up and he'll probably won't train a month, show up and compete and do well. Like that's just
That's that tough age, right? That like 12 to 12, you're discovering girls, phone,
14.
the
He's
apps. To,
14. He's a problem right now.
Right.
He's like a he looks like a man, but he's a child, and
Man
girls.
child.
Yeah.
That age. That age.
Wait, you've ever heard of a 14-year-old that's 6'1", 195 pounds?
No, very rarely.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a man child. It's weird. He's a good-looking kid too. Kind of looks like his mom, so he's blessed there. And you know, he's definitely on that life, kind of, you know, checking the whole scenario of what's happening in the world, you know. But you know, they in our house for jiu-jitsu is, but everybody sits down. Like if I turn the TV on and I start watching, they'll kind of one at a time kind of sit and sit with me.
There is some days that we wind up on the floor, you know, trying moves on each other. It has happened before.
Yeah.
And we'll just spend like a Sunday afternoon just like drilling.
I saw one of your
randomly.
videos where your kids were throwing you around a lot,
Yeah,
or everybody was throwing each other around, right?
Yeah, and that happens
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, the video of love.
Yes, yes.
That video.
I'm new to
Have you ever
TikTok. I don't
seen
know if
this?
that was a
Yeah,
TikTok.
You gotta
yeah,
watch
that's
it.
on
Watch it.
TikTok.
I'm brand new to TikTok.
There's
so.
2 or 3 videos that she's posted that's hilarious. One is like she's like it's
My
a meme.
favorite
It's a
is-
voice meme that's like, have you ever been in love? And then the person's like,
Well, I seen that when
I
you're
don't
in
think
the
so.
background. You're in the background.
yeah.
Yes, there are.
See, I seen that.
Yeah, the little clip scene there that you know I had it on my phone of us just like being silly doing jiu-jitsu, trying moves, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
And during quarantine, there was a lot of that.
yeah, there was a lot of
How bad? We talked about it a little bit before, but let's talk about it here. How bad did the quarantine affect you? How bad was the pandemic for you as far as the gym?
We had such a great culture. We were blessed. There was a lot of students that just kind of, they were like, we're good. Don't worry about us. You know, keep doing what you're doing. Just, you know, give us as much as you can with what we got, and we'll keep it moving. There was a lot of students that quit, you know, and it's, you know, it's expected because some are the core and then some are new. You know what I mean? You can't expect the guy who started jiu-jitsu 2 months ago to say, yeah, just, you know, I'm not going to do this for the next 6 months, but you can keep my membership alive, you know?
Yeah.
And then there's students that are, you know, 5 years old. They were like, you know, we've been here forever. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to change our lives, you know? Because most people, let's be real, they kept their jobs. You know, most people kept normal.
I just started working. I worked from home.
Just
Changed,
work, yeah.
My life didn't change
you know?
much.
But in our business, it's not necessarily the
Yeah.
case, you know? So in
Did
our
you
business,
close down officially for X amount of time?
I closed for about
for
2
three-
months.
3 months, no?
I felt like it was 2 months, maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5. 2.5.
Yeah, I got the first month. We as a family got kind of scared, you know, just like everybody else. We're like, oh man, this is
gonna happen.
people are dying, you know, and then
People are dying.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Well, I mean, we got scared.
Yeah.
We got intimidated because everything was happening in the country. It was just craziness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second month, I was just like, yeah, I'm not really gonna be. We can't continue this process because we're gonna eventually shut down if we do this for much longer, you know.
So we did
So
the Zoom.
We did
for a
Zooms. We
while.
did Zooms
Yeah.
for right away, right? Where when we closed, we were on Zoom, and then we realized Zoom wasn't going to go anywhere. And then within 2 months of being closed, we're like, no, we got to open back up, you know. And I just put plastic everywhere and opened the gym, and people were training, and we kept the gym alive through whoever wanted to show up. You know, like if you're not really worried, show up and train.
Yeah.
You know, if you are, then you know, I'm sorry. You know, some people were sensitive about it. You know, I still have many students that were, you know, longtime students that just haven't even come back yet. You know, and I'm like, man, you know, like vaccines are out. Everybody's, you know, most people are back. Our student base is better now. You know, there was an upward boom. You know, and I know a lot of the schools have the same process.
Yeah, we're seeing that in
But
Coral Springs.
COVID was a time that we like realized who's family and who wasn't.
Yeah.
Let's just say that
Yeah, no,
because
I kinda-
we had a huge support of
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of
real
good
people
people.
there saying, you know,
Supporting
like he
the
said, we're
gym.
going nowhere. We're still gonna continue paying, you know, and,
Yeah, there was
it was
people that were-
something that we say like, oh, please continue to pay, and we will credit you guys back as soon as we open. It's just now, you know, if we shut down.
Yeah,
you
especially
know,
for us, we had just moved into that new location. We'd been there just short of a little over a year, I believe, and it was just, you know, just a lot of good blessings. Though, you know, there was a lot of good people. There was people that weren't even. There's one student that comes to mind. He didn't even have a membership anymore, and he just like, hey, here, sign me up, put me back on. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And he goes, man,
just want to support.
just want to
Yeah.
support. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
We're
You know,
so
like, what do you say?
blessed.
That's
We're so
awesome.
blessed
Yeah.
with good people at our gym. Like I feel like we attract so many good people.
Yeah, I think that's the good
Generally
nature of your
good people.
jujitsu will return that to
Yeah.
you. You know, that's the
Absolutely.
beautiful aspect of it.
I have another listener question for you. So we had Carolina Granite. Jason Goldstein is his name. One of the aspects of your approach to competition is your hardcore old school style. He says it reminds me of two other old school legends, Ralph Gracie, and Salo Ribeiro. Who would Vagner say is his biggest influences, if any, in the history of BJJ?
I know.
Do you?
Marcelo.
Yeah, Marcelo was, but he was
It's right
his style was different.
You watched
Like-
him.
Yeah, I watched him a lot, of course. He was-
Marcelo Garcia?
Yeah, he was the GOAT. To me, he's the GOAT.
Just bought his
Jiu-jitsu.
his first north-south instructional.
Yeah,
I love that.
He's the GOAT of jiu-jitsu for me, just because of his size and the accomplishments he did. You know, he's just he did so many things that people wish they did once. He did 5-6 times in a row, and
Yeah.
you know, and he was just unreal. But his approach to jiu-jitsu wasn't exactly the answer to that question. I don't know where exactly I drew it from, but to me it was more of like I just wanted to be as tough as I could while doing good technique at the same time. You know, just like I wanted to make people's lives really hard while I was grappling, at the same time bringing that like MMA aspect to grappling, you know what I mean? So he said Ralph Gracie. I like to look, I wouldn't say Henzo would be a guy that I'm like saying I used him as an example, but like remembering watching Henzo fight Sakuraba, and he was just like didn't care that his arm was going to get ripped off while he was fighting him. Just that sets with me some way, just because it makes me think like, man, that guy was like, he didn't care. Like he was there to die. He was there to either win by killing someone or lose by dying, you know?
Yeah.
And that to me is like the ultimate savagery moment, you know, in my mind. Like I relate that, you know, saying Ralph Gracie because he's his brother, makes me think of like, you know, the mindset that I bring to when I compete. You know, I'm like in there. I have no regard for you. You know, that's why back to Jim. Jim was like, oh, you know, I'm like, bro, you sure you want to do this? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Like I asked you, I warned you. It was funny because it wasn't just Jim. There was another kid that he brought into the tournament with him, a friend of his, who's now a black belt too, and the kid was good. And I did the kid dirty too. And both him and the kid were like
At
good
least you're
friends.
honest.
Yeah, him and the kid were good friends, and they left there and they were like just like shaking their head. They're like, bro, I can't believe you. Like he said, I heard his friend his friend had to like, I think it hit him with a wrist lock, if I'm not mistaken, like Felipe style. But it was something where I did to him where he was like messed up for a very long time. And it wasn't like I grabbed it and he did tapped and I didn't let go. It was just I grabbed it, I ripped it off.
You meant it. You grabbed it like you meant it. Yeah.
I ripped it off, and then he had to scream because I ripped it off. He didn't scream because it was like a slow, progressive tap. It was like I'm gonna break it, you know, when I grab it. So, and again, that's what I was talking about, being savage. You know, when I do things, just like doing it as mean as I can, so that you know when I do something, you know that I'm doing it to hurt you. You know, because that's what my job is we're on a stage. You're shaking my hand. We're gonna fight.
Yeah.
You know, if you grab my leg and you break it, I'm going to look at you and be like, good job. You did your job, you know. But if I grab your leg and break it, I'm going to look at you and say, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not, you know.
Have you ever had any major injuries from just like tournaments? Have you ever walked away
Not
from
in
injury?
tournaments. I've hurt myself in training a lot. You know, I broke my tibia and fibia, like you see these guys breaking on television nowadays.
From kicks? From MMA?
Somebody jumped
Oh.
guard and fell on my leg, and I looked down and my foot looked like Anderson Silva's leg.
Ugh.
Yeah. And then I spent like 6 months to a year kind of, you know, nursing that and getting it back. And then I had a meniscus tear, you know, have a bunch of cuts, you know, stitches, get stitches regularly. So, yeah, but that's about it. Anything else I injured that you remember?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go into a speed round. We're going to go in the speed round, and now we have two of you to do the speed round. So you're both going to answer. We'll ask both of you these questions. Okay, so gi or no gi? What's your favorite?
Okay.
Okay.
No gi. Takedown or pull guard?
Takedown.
I don't know.
She's not good either one, so she's
Yeah,
not sure. She's not sure.
I saw it
That's
in
a setup,
both.
Fafa.
And girls
That's a
girls
setup.
always pull guard, so she's just like waits for them to pull guard. But she
Or
doesn't get a
if they
takedown
wanna,
either.
or if they try to take down and go for the kimura, so it's like I wait for them to react.
Do you know?
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Are you? Should I ask you? Is she good at your move?
She has a she's spent a lot of time learning it. We did a camp seminar through Europe for like a month, and she spent literally it was a month. She did a month of every day. I did one seminar every day for a month in
was
Europe.
awesome.
And she went to every
was
single
amazing.
seminar for, so imagine 3 hours a day, every day for a month. doing
Learning that
moves.
move?
Learning moves
Oh,
that I
moves.
was teaching that was connected to that move.
Okay.
It's the
So
float.
yeah, we did
Became a
between the
pro
float
on
and
the
the
float.
kimura, float and kimura, float and kimura. So she learned the float and the kimura really well. So yeah, she has some good series from there.
All right. Toughest match ever.
Toughest match ever. MMA or jiu-jitsu?
Either one.
Uh,
Both.
Donald Cerrone, my UFC debut.
Really? Oh, you fought Donald, really?
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my butt whooped for 3 rounds.
How about jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu.
Anybody stand out?
Man, there's a lot of fights in jiu-jitsu. I mean, right off the bat, my last loss at ADCC was rough. You know, my match with JT Torres that I lost, it was hard. It wasn't hard because it was hard. The match, it was hard just because I lost. It was just like, oh, this sucks. You know, I've gotten to this point. This is the point. This is my journey that I've been chasing my whole life, and I get to that last part and I misstep. You know, but it's part of the game.
Toughest match.
His.
Yours.
No, your own toughest. You said you competed. Do you have a match? But we don't have to necessarily know their name. But was there a time where you're like, this was a tough
I
match?
can answer this for her.
Go ahead.
She just competed recently, and it was tough for her because she was
A purple belt.
purple belt, and she didn't want to do it, and she had been saying, I'm never going to compete again, and then one day, Jasmine is that person that she's like there poking her with a stick, and she's like, you should sign up, and Fafa was like, all right, I'll do it. And Jasmine went and signed her up. So she
Right
got,
away. And I'm like,
like
oh,
she signed her up
No
like
chance.
like she
No
said
chance
something.
to reconsider.
Yeah, she had no, like she couldn't back out of it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So her name was on the thing for like 2 months. She knew she was gonna go compete, and she's like, oh, dreading the moment. And then she went and competed, and she was upset with the competition. And then she came back, and it was like it sparked something in her. She lost, but it sparked something in her. And I told her, like, that's why you compete, because that's with the spark that you want. That's the relighting the candle of like, hey, this is what I did wrong. This is what I need to do. This is how I need to get better. So I think that could be your
The
toughest
most
loss.
recent
Will you
one.
compete again? Will
Yeah,
you?
no.
You don't want
Be careful.
We'll talk to Jasmine.
No, no, no.
Yeah, be careful what you say around Jasmine,
We
because
never know. We never know. We'll see.
Don't
she
say
might catch you when you're half asleep. Mom, can you want to compete? Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is: other than achieving the rank of black belt, obviously you've been a black belt forever. What is your ultimate goal in the world of jiu-jitsu?
to change the sport.
In what way?
Make it better, make it professional, make it real, so people can make a real living off of it, and take it to a level that doesn't exist right now. I have some actually things working out to do that. You know, I want to create a league for jiu-jitsu, and I think jiu-jitsu needs that. I think it doesn't have it now, and I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh, there's no money in jiu-jitsu. No, there's people making money in jiu-jitsu. There's lots of avenues to make money in jiu-jitsu. Just people don't know how to do it. And I feel like I'm in a really good position right now in my life, you know, that people know my name, and eventually I'll get forgotten just like everybody else in the past has got forgotten. And I don't want to get forgotten and just be left with a memory of who I was. I want to use that to try to take jiu-jitsu to the next level.
Carry forward.
Are you surprised at where it is now?
Oh, it's
like
freaking-
pleasantly surprised, or like this is taking too long?
I'm like, I can't say I'm pleasantly surprised, but I can't say it's taking too long either. I think it's gradually moving at the exact rhythm it's supposed to move. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's still people that are in front of jiu-jitsu that are not really doing anything to help jiu-jitsu. So like, I'll give you an example. One organization that's huge, that makes a ton of money, that They don't do nothing for jiu-jitsu, and all they do is collect is the IBJJF, for example. They're great for the sport. They take in, payments. They host really good tournaments. They're really good for the lower level guys that want to grow to the next level, but they're on their own plan. They're in their own goals. Their goals is to just continue to create revenue. It's a business.
Plan.
It's a business plan for them. So what are they doing for the sport? What are they doing to make the sport better? What are they doing to take the sport to the next level? They're not doing anything. They're just feeding their pockets. And again, are they great? Yeah, they're amazing. They're the most well-ran, most accomplished, most recognized, most everything. They're the federation, but they have their own goals.
What do you think they could be doing if you could get somebody's ear there? What do you think they could be doing differently?
I don't want to put that in the world.
No,
because I'm going to put that in the world myself.
There you go.
Good.
I'm not going to put that in the world.
And hopefully you come back and talk about it.
I will. Hopefully you guys host me back. I'll come here to tell you as soon as I launch. I'm already in the process of doing this thing that
when it's done, you tell.
Yeah.
All about
No, we're good with that.
But there's
That's awesome.
there's so much that could be done. I think jiu-jitsu is a hobby. It's a sport, and every sport started the same way. Think about it. Soccer probably started this way. Football probably started this way. Baseball probably started this way. Every sport started somewhere, right? So we have a huge following, and we live in a different, generation that, man, freaking cornholes on TV,
Yeah, right.
People are making so much money playing cornhole. Come on. Seriously?
Crazy.
Seriously? Bowling, golf.
I mean,
I feel like there's still so many people to find out what jiu-jitsu is, though.
Yeah, I still have
Like,
people that
there's
come to my
still-
school that ask me for karate or taekwondo or, they don't know any better,
Yeah.
how's that? How are we in this
Day and age, and
people don't know what jiu-jitsu is,
Exactly.
Like jiu-jitsu is the strongest martial art in the world. It's been proven. It's already been proven. So it's, again, we get categorized with UFC or MMA, right? But jiu-jitsu.
Karate.
I love that. I still get that once in a while. Oh, you do. Your wife told me you do the karate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's-
on
it's
TikTok.
funny, right?
On TikTok,
yeah,
when
now
I
It's
started
not.
to...
It's not.
It
They think
used
you're
to
like,
bother me. Now I'm just like I usually have a good conversation about it. I'm like, well, no, I don't. That's not really that. It's the ground for.
you have to go through that process, and then even then the person's like, yeah, they didn't get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it's sad. Why is that happening? Because the people who have the upper hand are just keeping that upper hand right in our throats, just keeping us right below water.
Well, this is the mecca for it. I mean, South Florida. I mean, if there's a way to change it, or
Like
start
I
a
said,
league.
you need to have the right people in the right places, right, to do those things. So, like I said, I don't want to wait till 10 years goes by and my name is left in the history books, and people don't remember who I am, and then I'm trying to do this, and they're like, "Oh, who's this wash
There's a
up
saying: "Make hay while the sun shines."
That's
So
right.
Do it when things are good.
That's right.
All right. So, what would you be doing if you hadn't have found martial arts? Did you ever aspire to? I want to be a cop, a fireman.
No, I
You know?
didn't. I didn't have any goals. Yes, Fargo.
Professional poker.
No, that was many moons after jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu came
No, we
first.
joke.
Yeah.
We joke about that.
Yeah, I always say like I could have probably been a professional poker player, but because I did take a hiatus in jiu-jitsu for a couple of years in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I became an addict. Not an addict, because an addict. I believe poker's not like legitimately gambling. I believe poker's skills in poker.
You
know what
got
I mean?
obsessed. You got obsessed with playing poker.
I'm like I said, I'm ultra competitive,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
got good at it, and I got very, very in depth in it. Let's just say.
Biggest regret, if there is one, biggest regret as it relates to jiu-jitsu.
Biggest regret.
What would you have done differently in your journey? Is there anything you can look back at where you say, I wish I wouldn't have done that? We're going to ask you the same question.
No, I don't. I got nothing at the top of my head I can come up with.
How about you? For yourself, or
myself,
even maybe
or for
something
him?
that you think that he might have done
For
better?
myself,
Yeah.
taking those 2 years off
Yeah.
from when I received my blue belt, those 2 years is like,
It's a world of difference.
oh, it's
Everybody
time.
takes
Those
time
2
off,
years
though.
of time. Yeah,
And letting
so-
Jasmine sign you up for that tournament the other day.
No, that was part of it. But the 2 years, and I mean, when you take
Yeah.
a break, it's to get to where you were,
Yeah.
you got to work even harder. For him, well, everything happens for a reason, right? But kicking AJ off stage, I think if it would happen, the Vagner that, you know, in 2014, who he was and who he is today is two different Vagners. I don't think he would have done this if the situation would present to, you know what I mean?
He wouldn't do it today. You
Yeah,
mean? He wouldn't do it today?
but
No,
that
I probably wouldn't do it
situation,
today, no.
but that situation also helped for him to get exposed, because I believe nobody really knew who Vagner Rocha was before the kick. Oh, you're the guy who kicked him off the stage. So that's when he started to make a name.
This is the kinder, gentler Vagner Rocha.
Yeah.
The more again,
The Buddha monk, Vagner
even
Rocha.
that guy, even that guy on the couch that I was at the party probably would have got it if it was me 5 years before.
Yeah,
he would have
yeah,
got it. He would have got her. I wouldn't have even said two more words. I would have said, when he said I wasn't scared, I would have been standing already. But then again, that's the person I became, and I really think this is the best version of me now. And I hope that people will see that sometimes you're better off just biting your tongue and being, taking an insult as a lesson to learn. Sometimes, I would tell my kids that when I was younger and somebody would honk at me in traffic, first thing I would do is stick my finger out the window and hit my head if I could, get out the car, just look at the person and give them the meanest grill I could. And then now when people honk behind me, I'm just like, yo, I'm sorry. You're so impatient back there. I feel bad for you. Like, man, why are you honking at me? Like, your life must be really hard that you got to lay into the horn, and feel this way. Like,
to get where you're going 1 minute sooner.
Yeah,
if
like,
that.
seriously.
Do you
like,
remember? Do you remember the moment that switch occurred in you? We haven't talked about that.
Well, for me, it was.
Was it an event? Was it a match that you lost? Was it?
Yeah, there was a loss of life, and then a turn in my mindset to figure out something bigger in life. For me, it was, I had a friend that was a really close friend that got murdered, and it was like, for me, this guy was like probably one of the biggest inspirations in my life to get me to where I am today. He was the biggest Vagner Rocha believer I've ever met in my life. He was just like, everywhere we went, he was like, bro, you need to do this. You need to go there. You need to go. Like, he literally put me on a plane and took me to, that's how I got in the UFC. He put me on a plane, took me to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts, went with me. And we got there, I did the tryouts, and I made it to the second day of the tryouts. And I remember getting, interviewed by Dana White, and then, they flew me out to Vegas for 2 weeks and or a week. I don't remember how long it was. It was a long time. They flew me out to Vegas, and I stayed in a room with Michael Johnson. I remember this. And then they made the final selection. I didn't make the final cut. And then 2 weeks later, they called me and they gave me that fight, short notice. They were like, you don't want to go to the show. You're going to go straight to the UFC. So it was like, yeah, because I remember going.
The Cerrone fight? That was the Cerrone fight, right?
Because I remember doing the Ultimate Fighter show, and it was funny because they did the Ultimate Fighter show. They did it in stages. They did one guy holding pads for you, and then they did one session of you grappling with somebody, and they picked the grappling matches. They were like, oh, this guy, this record, and they would announce all your accolades, and they picked a guy who was another grappler, and I remember doing the I remember doing the roll with the guy, and right before I rolled, they had already done one session of the rolls, and Dana White stood up and he's like, bro, you guys are here to show me skills. If you're just here to hold each other down and not do anything, just don't even come out here. Don't come out on the mat. Don't do anything. And I remember he said it, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, oh, damn. So I got to do something here special, right? So I just literally started toying this guy. It was so bad. I remember feeling bad for him afterwards because I just embarrassed him really badly. Like, I basically put him in a triangle and then let him out, and then I armbarred him, and then I let him out. But I didn't tap him. That one time that I tap him, I remember that I just would like get his arm straight and kind of like look over. I was looking over at them. Like I was like doing it while looking at Dana in his eyes, like, you see what I'm doing? And then let him go, and then get like his back, put the rear naked, and kind of smile, let it go, then transition to something else. And I just kept doing it. And in 5 minutes, I think I might have tapped this guy 5 times if I wanted to, but I didn't. And I remember the guy, like, as soon as we finished the round, he looked at me, he's like, bro, what belt are you? And I'm like, a black belt. And he's like, how long you been training? And I'm like, and he's like, I'm a black belt too, but like, just like demoralizing. Like he was like, he wanted to cry. And I met this guy years later. He's like, do you remember me? And I'm like, no, I don't remember. He's like, we grappled once at the Ultimate Fighter tryouts. And I'm like, oh, I remember you now.
Like a cat playing with a toy.
Yeah. And I remember, like, while I was doing this, I was doing it intentional, and I was just so used to doing that because I would do it in the gym. Like when I'm training, like I'll be in the gym rolling, and I have this habit of doing this, and I do it in competition too. I have a habit of watching who's on the mat. Like I don't roll watching my roll. I watch the other people. Like I'm rolling and I'm watching a student over there, so nobody gets hurt. It helps.
Sure.
It's helped me maintain my business the way it is. So I'm watching, and sometimes I'm rolling, and I'm like, yeah, look at you, Joe. You're doing really good over there. Good job. That was nice. You know, like watching this stuff happen. You know. So I had this skill to do that, and I was just doing it and kind of like looking directly in his eyes while I was doing it, and he didn't take his eyes off me either. And then he came over and talked to me a little bit, and then I talked to Joe Silva and got my information, and that's how that turned about. But again, back to my friend.
I remember that. That was 2010 that you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So this friend of mine, he was just a huge inspiration, and he tragically was murdered, and I started putting things in question in my life, in my brain, in my mind, and one of the things that you know brought me back in this direction that started to the seed was planted. Well, she's the one that planted the seed, but she's the one that kind of pointed me like, hey, it's right here, right in front of you. It's been sitting there the whole time, and you haven't just paid attention to it. Was, you know, kind of finding the word, you know, learning about God, and implementing the things that that I need to do. And at that time, even when I fought AJ, I wasn't, you know, I knew the word, you know, but I wasn't living through it per se. I wasn't that person that I am today. And I told my kids the story about the honking, like, you know, people believe like, oh, you find God and you automatically change. It's not true. It's not true at all, because it's clearly work. It's work at it. Like I have to work at it every day to be a new person. Every single day I have to be better. I have to, you know, consistently try to renew your mind and change. Add in words for me, please, because you know you're really good at this. I have to try to change every single day to be a better man, to be a new version of myself from yesterday. You know, and like I said, you know, when I was younger, I probably would have got in the car and tried to beat up the guy who was driving behind me. And then, you know, years later, I was like thinking about flicking them off, but I wouldn't flick them off because I was just like cursing in my brain about how I wanted to do it, and still getting offended by it. And then, you know, 2 years later, where a person's honking at me, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe these people, you know, like what's wrong with them? You know, still upset about it. And now I'm like, people honk me. I mean, I feel bad. I'm like, man, I feel bad for you that your life is that hard, that you have to lay into the horn because the light changed and I wasn't paying attention, because I normally am not, you know. But it's a changing of your old you, and becoming a new you, and then back to trying to inspire others to be the same. You know, try to draw out the best version of yourself every single day. You know, so that people can get inspired and become better. You know.
Yeah.
All right, we have one final question.
Now listen, we do a lot of joking around on the show. We do a lot of serious stuff, but we do a lot of joking around.
Well,
and this is our
balance.
This is exactly right. This is our joking around question. We ask everyone.
It's joking around question? This is not a joking around question. This is the most important question that you can ever ask anybody in the world of jiu-jitsu.
What is
Okay,
it?
if you want to put it there.
This is the most important question that you're ever going
to both of you guys. To both.
Go ahead. Lay
half
it on
of the Rocha family. Let's see what they say. Do you wash your belt?
No.
Perfect. Okay, great answer.
Who does?
Okay,
People do it?
Wait. Let's talk about that.
everybody.
Now Milton.
I wash my belt. Yes, I wash my belt.
Milton is the
cheater.
Resident belt washer.
Cheater.
I walk in.
Hygiene.
Do you buy a new belt all the time too, or no?
Okay.
Do you buy a new belt too? Then you might as well should buy a new belt. You should just get new belts. Because if you're washing your belt, you're trying to implement that you've been training more than you really have. That's what I believe in belt washers.
Oh, okay, because it looks worn out and faded,
Yes,
right?
it's cheating. Your coaches are looking at it going, look at that guy. He's got that belt for. So remember, coaches forget how long you have a belt for, right? Like Fafa
like
said,
you
it's
wear
been
and tear.
3 years. I don't remember when I gave her
Actually,
her blue
has been
belt.
4 now that I thought of
I don't remember when I gave her a purple belt. I just know there's a certain amount of time. I'm like, I'm like, all right, she's getting better. She's progressing. I'm not looking at the color of her belt, but if she washed her belt every time she trained, that belt would look faded as hell right now. And then I'd be like, wow, man, that belt is old. She's been a belt a long time.
a new belt.
So I believe there's a cheating process in that.
Strictly hygiene. Strictly for
She just buy a new belt.
Never taken that. A few people have said that now, that I want to see the practice. I want to see my training on my belt. I want it to wear from the training, not from the washing.
Well, let's be real.
Never considered that.
Do you
that.
get that kind of wet? Do you get soaked?
Milton does.
Like
I
your
don't
belt,
wash it
your
every-
belt,
I
your
don't
belt,
wash
your
it
belt
every
is like
time.
this thick. You know what I mean? Like how much water is on
Milton
it?
is
when
the
you
guy
finish?
that every time his belt comes off, he stops and puts it back
I
on.
feel like I should just shut up and just read the rest.
This is a serious question. We got to get to it.
I wash it maybe once a week. I'll train usually 2 days during the week, 2 open mats on the weekend. He's open 7 days a week. So 4 days, I'm usually going to wash it at least once that week. Now, sometimes I throw it.
Junior's saying you wash it every day.
Sometimes I throw it down now. There's open mat on Saturday. A no gi on Saturday. There's
He washes his belt
It's 3
on no-gi
days.
days.
It's 3 days of gi and 1 day of. So I usually just throw it downstairs. Sometimes forgot to throw it in the wash. I grab it and I just put it in my bag and I go to the gym. It's always been about hygiene for
Milton
me.
washes his
Never
belt
ever considered that it's
no-gi days.
somebody's gonna look at it and go it's worn. So now I guess I can't wash the belt anymore.
It's
Sorry everybody.
no. There's an old. That's why it's an old myth, because there's a lot of guys that used to do that back in the days. They would do it on purpose.
Okay.
They would get a belt
Wash
and
it,
just wash it, and then show up to class pretty often and not train that much, but wash their belt a lot. And then they're always kind of like letting the instructor know, be like, yeah, man, it's been a long time. It's been a long time, because some people are there just for one reason.
Sure.
Forget about.
They're just there to get promoted.
Felipe's not letting me get away with it. Felipe gonna
Felipe's-
kick my ass before he gives me a belt.
I believe it, but man, I've had 2 students over the course of, how long have we been open? Since 2008.
13.
Yeah, I have 2 students over the course of 13 years quit because I didn't promote them. You believe that?
Higher belts, or promote to a higher belt, or to like lower belt?
Lower belts.
White to blue?
Blue. 2. There were 2 blue belts. And I'm gonna not mention their names.
No, of course not.
But 2 blue belts that both weren't my students to begin with. Then they came to me. They started training at my gym, and when they showed up, they weren't blue belts to begin with, right? They were like bad already. They were white belts that were blue belts from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I said, no problem. You're going to work through it to get to there. And then they stayed there for another 3 or 4 years. And they never progressed. I'll give you an example of these 2 gentlemen. They were very famous for doing these 2 exact same things. And it's funny. They would show up late, which I don't bother anybody about showing up late, because
Skip warm-ups.
I would rather you show up late. I'd rather you show up late than not show up at all. Right? That's my motto. I'd rather you show up late than not show up at all. Then they would show up late. They would skip warm-ups. They wouldn't even drill right. Half the time they would like do the drill, and I'd be like, hey, man, you're doing it wrong. They're like, yeah, but I like it this way. And I'd be like, oh, you're that guy. Cool.
That guy.
Again, I'm not that guy. I'm not.
Sure.
I became so much more subtle that I'm just like, I used to be really mean about that guy. I would be, like I had that old school mentality of like, oh, really? It's like that, huh? And then I just teach them some sort of lesson in the process. Nowadays, I'm just like, man, you do you, man. You got this. You're on your way.
That's awesome. I love it.
You do you, bro. Like you got this. Keep going.
I like the
See how
Keep paying membership. Okay?
see how far you get with that. And then when they don't get nowhere, and they're like, oh, how come this is not happening? I'm like, well, because of all these things that I've been saying, and you haven't been really listening. It's going in one ear and out the other. But yeah, they eventually came to me and they were like, I need to get promoted. And I was like, you need to get better. Like
I never even thought
Bro.
at one time.
No,
Never
it's
thought about
serious.
asking for promotion.
No, it's so serious. And I was just like, wow. Like, and then they were like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not in the right place. I'm like, maybe you're not. Yeah. No hard feelings, bro. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like you can keep it moving. Like, but And then funny enough, this one guy, one of the two, I don't know about the other one, but one of the two, no, actually I know about the other one. The other one stopped. He became a boxer. And then one of the two spent another 4 years somewhere else, and then he got his purple belt. And I was just like, man, he must have put in work to get that thing.
Because he was with you for a few years, and then he went someplace else for a month.
Yeah, he must have spent another 4 years just to get that purple belt. And I'm glad for him. I'm happy that somewhere else somebody felt like he deserved that. But I keep thinking, like, bro, if it took you that long to get to purple belt, imagine how long it's going to take you to get the black belt. Because, it's not even about the belt. I believe it's more about the moral compass that you bring to training, right?
It is.
Like the moral compass of, like, you're supposed to do a certain amount of things. And when somebody tells you, like, hey, you're doing this wrong, you're not going to turn to the guy who has the world of experience at his hands telling you, hey, you're doing it wrong. You're going to tell him, like, no, this is how I do it. You're not ready,
It's ego. Ego is holding you back.
It's huge.
Right? Yeah.
Huge. And then just the ego to ask somebody that question, like,
Exactly.
come on, man, you really going to go to that extreme? Like, all right, At least I remember I was already kind of on the right track. I was like, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you're not ready. But don't wash your belt.
I can't now.
That's I want to say, you know what? And that's a matter of fact, that's the consensus, right? That's the consensus in the Rocha household, right? So we could probably go with 4.
Yeah,
I don't think on that box.
I don't think. Yeah, Achilles has a hard time even washing his gi. I don't think that.
So
right? Oh my God.
I'm going to change my biggest regret in jiu-jitsu. My biggest regret in jiu-jitsu was sitting next to Vagner Rocha and telling him that I washed my belt. Because now I feel a little bit of shame right now.
You know what you do?
You do you, bro.
Yeah, hey.
You know what you do now? Buy 2 other belts, brand new, and just put them on. Start wearing them. Like, what that belt means absolutely nothing. Eventually, you're going to change it. You're going to get a new one anyways. You know what I mean? So just buy another one. Buy another color. Buy another color. Buy another.
I don't know how Felipe's going to feel about that.
Buy another belt. Buy another belt. Something different. Buy another belt and just rotate the belts. And if somebody asks me, like, man, I got 3 belts, 4 belts, like, and when I feel like one's dirty, I'll go wash it.
Well, I can't wash it anymore.
No, but if you have one belt and you wash that belt all the time.
Yeah,
I got to do what he says.
He
says, lay it out in the sun. The sun kills everything. Put it outside.
Yeah, the sun helps. The sun helps.
It'll give some color.
The sun helps just as bad.
Yeah.
With fading it too.
Oh yeah,
that's bad. It's cheating right there too.
What do you tell me to do, Junior?
Hey man, you do you, bro. You do you.
The only place
that's gonna be a meme. I want to make that. You do you. Awesome.
Right. You give somebody good advice and they say, no, I know. You're like,
there you go. We're gonna wrap up. Do you want to shout out? Do you have any sponsors? Anybody you want to say hello to? Say thank you to, whatever. This is your time.
I mean, I always have my usual sponsors, Tatami Fightwear. They provide me all my gear for no gi. If you're not familiar with them, go check them out. I promise you, whatever you wear, it's probably the best quality gi or no gi you'll ever buy. It's by far the best I've ever worn. And Fighter's Choice is a supplement company that I'm bit partnered in and helping grow. So if you're not familiar with it, check that out as well. And our crew down here in South Florida, we run South Florida. South Florida is ran by Fight Sports.
Yes, it is.
And this is a home base. If you're unfamiliar with one of the schools or you live near one, go check it out. Not only will you find yourself training in the best school possible, but you'll find the best people around you. And that's what you want. You want to be surrounded by people who have the right intentions. They're not there just to train with you and beat you up, but they're there to help you grow and become better people.
And there you go. We'll leave it there. Hang out for me for 1 second. We're going to do just a little bit of housekeeping. Appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you, Fafa. Last minute addition to the podcast. Thank you
Appreciate you
for joining us. So shout out to our Patreon podcast sponsors, including some of our gym sponsors, Carlson Gracie Winter Haven in Winter Haven, Florida, CGWinterhaven.com, at Carlson Gracie _Winter Haven on Instagram. Also Carlson Gracie Broward County in North Lauderdale, Carlson Gracie BrowardCounty.com, and on Instagram at Carlson Gracie Broward County. Also John Way Martial Arts in Plantation, Florida, JohnWayMartialArts.com and at John Way Martial Arts. Robert Walker, Frank House, Wolsey Rivera, Boa Athletics, at BOA_athletics on Instagram. These are all of our individual Patreon sponsors. Michael Pixley Jr., Jason Smiley, Britt Tavar, James Fisher, CJ Carroll, Mission 22. We love them. Chuck Reddor and Roberto Santiago. If you'd like to support the show, visit patreon.com/Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. You join and you're automatically entered to win up to $100 in Jiu-Jitsu swag every single month. Anybody that if we use their question on the show, they also go into this pool. So every month we do a $100 giveaway. That's awesome. All right. So at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies, for all the ways you can watch, listen, support, and donate to our scholarship program, we award one new scholarship. We're going to try to award at least one every 3 months now. We've got 2 sponsored athletes right now. But if you donate, we're going to continue to award scholarships to veterans, first responders, and just amazing kids doing really cool things. All right, check out the podcast store at jiu-jitsudummies.shop. You get 15% off with code JJD. We have ranked rash guards, face shields, T-shirts, backpacks, coffee mugs. Get free shipping on orders over $50. This is a big one here because we've got a little extra announcement for We Defy. We want to thank the We Defy Foundation for their support, but they're actually doing a gala in Dallas in September. They're looking for silent auction sponsors. So click the link in the bio or in the podcast description, and please donate if you can. The podcast store is going to put up a $500 gift card for a podcast store. Big shout out again to Fightback CBD. Get 20% off your CBD order at fightbackcbd.com with code JJD. I'm Uncle Milty BJJ on Instagram.
At jvagnerjr.com.
Vagner Rocha
BJJ.
And Vagner Rocha Martial Arts.
and
Yes.
Vagner Rocha Martial
On
Arts.
Instagram. I know that one.
Yep.
At Faetuza on Instagram and at Faithfully Fully Me on TikTok.
I'll put them in the bio in the description of the podcast as well.
TikTok famous.
TikTok 400,000.
You're our
Did
first.
you say?
You're our first
No,
TikTok
no,
famous.
3 something.
Oh,
Three.
I'm sorry.
She's almost at 400,000.
generous. She's being generous.
368.
Oh wow. I'm at 450.
We're rounding up. It's close to 400.
Well, awesome. Listen, again, thank you guys so much for doing this. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you,
Thank
Fafa.
you so much.
Thank you, my
Appreciate you
brother.
guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Take care, everybody.
Team don't wash your belt, baby.
And it is hot.